Hello, and welcome to another episode of Easing the Badger. I'm Will.
I'm Alex.
I'm Flint.
And today we are covering chapters 36, 37, and 38 of The Eye of the World by Robert Jordan. How's everyone doing?
Doing pretty good. How about you?
Aside from the always happening technical difficulties before we started, doing pretty all right.
Yeah, I'm doing okay. I had my MRI today, so that was brutal. He was like, "Hey, do you want headphones to listen to music?" I was like, "No, just earplugs is fine." Mistake.
Oh,
Should have done headphones. That bitch was loud as fuck.
I always heard they were super loud.
Yeah, and even with the earplugs in, I was like, I cannot imagine if I tried to raw dog this. That would be crazy. And he was like, "Do you want a cushion for under your knees?" I was like, "No, it's fine." Mistake. Should have done that too.
How long were you stuck in there?
30 minutes.
Oh, no. Jesus.
Yeah, it took 20 minutes, and then he took me out and injected like this contrast, he called it, or something, but he couldn't find a vein in my arm, so he had to use my hand. And then stuck me back in to cook for another 10 minutes.
Did you know it was going to be that long?
No.
Oh. They should warn you when they ask you that stuff. You sure you don't want that knee piddle? You're going to be in there for 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Oh. And you don't get your results right away, do you?
No, I think they're going to go. I might be able to see them in because they're on my chart or whatever.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
They might be able to look there, but I think otherwise they'll just send them directly to the ENT. But yep. So I did that, and it took much less time than I thought it would to get there, because it's, the maps said like a little less than 40 minutes. Yeah, no, we got there in 30. Oh, okay. So I left an hour before my appointment and got there a half an hour before. Sick. I just sat and watched Family Feud. Whatever. That's fine.
Fine. Totally fine.
Yep.
Gotta love waiting room TVs.
Yeah. I like to see what people answer in Family Feud.
I haven't watched it in a long time, but that one is a favorite of mine.
I've always liked Family Feud. I get clips of it from my reels, mostly for Steve Harvey's reactions to things, because he's very funny.
He's very memeable.
Yeah, I think they set him up. Or he sets up the contestants, because one of the hints, literally, he asked this lady, he was like, "Name something long and thin," and she went, "Whoop."
There was a Celebrity Family Feud with Jennifer Hudson's family.
Mm-hmm.
And her son literally gave an answer. Basically, his mom was the answer. And her son just not only got it completely wrong, like he got an X for it. And she's like, "Did I birth you?"
Mm-hmm. Anyway, yeah, so that went good. And then I came home, and I've just been hanging out since. But I did my homework last night. So
I did mine today at work. I have the stupidest Friday planned, because I have to take all 4 of my animals to the vet. They all need their checkups. They just all need their checkups and their shots. And Leia does need a little bit more. There is something wrong with her, but I had the money to do it, so I went to set 2 of them up for today, Walnut and one of the cats, and they're like, "Well, we can't get them in together." Like, what do you mean? "Well, we can't get them in the same appointment. We don't have time. There's too many appointments booked for that day, so we can get one in the morning and one in the afternoon." So I'm literally taking all of Friday off, because I also have a doctor's appointment in the middle of the day. So the dog is going in the morning. There's no point in me going to work for maybe an hour before I go to my doctor's appointment. And then it's only an hour or so after that the cat's appointment is for Pepper.
Right.
I'm like, this is ridiculous. Yeah. But after our trip home in July, the other 2 cats are booked for the same appointment on the same day.
Nice. I have to schedule with the vet for hours. They're way overdue.
Yeah.
For an appointment. I mean, they don't go outside or anything, but still.
I'm really, really bad about the cats. I admit that, but now we're to a point where Pepper is getting old. She's just turned 10. so she needs to be checked up more, even though she's perfectly healthy. There is something wrong with Leia, so Leia has to go in. I think she's got bladder crystals.
Oh no.
Or urinary crystals, I mean. And then Sylvie, I take in and make sure she gets her shots because she comes to the dog park with me and Walnut. So I want to make sure she's up to date on everything too. So
yeah.
Otherwise, it was almost always just consistently the dog. The dog was the only one I ever kept up on the shots with. I'm so bad about the poor cats. But now it's time to buckle down and actually be an adult and be a good pet owner. Yes. Yeah. God forbid I love them.
And this is why I don't have pets, because I just cannot afford all that business.
I am so goddamn lucky. Our vet, they were created, the original owners, set out to make veterinary care as absolutely cheap as possible. And the doctor who worked with them for many, many years that they sold to and who is now running the place has kept that. So Wally's yearly checkup with all of his shots and stuff cost me $65.
That's really not bad.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
It's not bad at all. I mean, imaging, like if you need x-rays and stuff, that shit will get ya. But the standard checkups and shots, little things like that, is very, very reasonable. And they will work with you a lot of the time, give you options on what you can or can't do and what they suggest for an issue to try and make it as cost effective for you as possible. So I love this place. We've been going to them since we adopted Charlotte back in 2012. So they're fantastic. I recommend them to everybody around here.
Oh, do we want to go ahead and get started on these summaries?
I suppose.
If we have to.
Is why we're here.
If we must, if this is what the podcast is for, I guess.
I've got a pretty important introduction to get to here, so
I know.
Okay, fine.
I suppose.
All right, chapter 36 is called Web of the Pattern, and we've got the leaf and vine icon again. And I think this time we can all guess it's for Ogier. We pick up right where we left off, with Master Gill leading the boys to an out-of-the-way table where he has a serving maid bring them some meager portions of meat and potatoes and mustard greens. As they ate, Master Gill asked them to fill him in on their story. Rand decided to give him a sanitized version of the tale, omitting any mention of Trollocs and Thades, but still trying to impress upon him the danger they faced. In the end, something compelled Rand to add, "It could bring you trouble helping us." Master Gill waved it off. "Can't say as I want trouble, but nothing could keep me from helping friends of Tom. The other friends of yours, though, that lady from up north, I'm sure we'll hear if someone like that is seen in town." "What about Elida?" Rand asked. The innkeeper shook his head and said, "No, she'll be able to tell you were connected to Tom, and that might get you put in a cell. They say she has a way of feeling things. What's happened, what will happen. She can cut through to what a man wants to hide. I don't know, but I wouldn't risk it. The guards would help with Dark Friends, but you'd have to keep quiet about Tom with them too. And as soon as Dark Friends were mentioned, Elida would get word, and you'd be right back where you started." Rand agreed. No guards, and Matt nodded so vigorously he got gravy on his chin. Before they could continue, the cook was in the doorway, beckoning for Master Gill. He went on a rant about how he might as well be married to her with the way she always finds something for him to do, and that leads to mention of how Camelin has a bigger problem than usual with rats these days. He lets them know their room is in the attic and that they should be safe from Dark Friends for now between the guard and the white cloaks that are in town. Rand went back to his food, but he saw that Matt had stopped eating. "I thought you were hungry," he said. Matt kept staring at his plate, pushing one piece of potato in a circle with his fork. "You have to eat, Matt. We need to keep up our strength if we're going to reach Tar Valon." Matt let out a low, bitter laugh. "Tar Valon! All this time it's been Camelin. Moraine would be waiting for us in Camelin. We'd find Perrin and Egwene in Camelin. Everything would be all right if we only got to Camelin. Well, here we are, and nothing's right. No Moraine, no Perrin, no anybody. Now it's everything will be all right if we only get to Tar Valon. We're alive, Rand said, more sharply than he had intended. He took a deep breath and tried to moderate his tone. We are alive. That much is all right. And I intend to stay alive. I intend to find out why we're so important. I won't give up. Matt continued grumbling, insinuating that it was suspicious of Gil to be so quick to help them, but Rand just told him to eat his food and watched him until he put another piece of meat in his mouth. Once they finished eating, a pretty serving girl showed them up to their attic room. She had a tendency to twist her skirt and giggle when she addressed Rand, but he didn't dare flirt back lest he make a fool of himself. He wished she had Perrin's way with girls. He was glad when she left. He expected a pithy remark from Matt, but as soon as the girl left, he flopped on the bed, fully clothed, and stared at the wall. Big mood. While Rand hung up his clothes on a peg on the wall, he kept looking at Matt's back. He thought he was fondling his dagger again, which, come on, Matt. At least wait till Rand is asleep to do that. You just gonna lie up here hiding? Rand asked. I am tired, Matt mumbled. Well, take a nap later. We need to ask Gil questions about how to find the others when they get to town. They're dead, Matt said to the wall, emo-ly. Okay, Mary Sunshine. Rand hesitated, but soon left, gently closing the door and hoping Matt would actually get some sleep instead of continuing to grip his hilt. Not like that's any of your business, Rand. Downstairs, Master Gil was nowhere to be found. Rand sat in the common room for a minute, but at one point a Queen's Guard popped his head in and scanned the room. Rand kept his head down to avoid his gaze, but by the time he looked up, the guard was gone. A serving girl said, They do that sometimes, just to check for trouble. A good Queen's man like you oughtn't to have anything to worry about, though. All the same, Rand asked if there was another room he could hang out in. She pointed him to the library, and he thanked her and asked her to let Master Gil know he was looking for him. She said Cook wanted a word with him, too, and Rand decided Gil was probably hiding from her. When he stepped into the room to which she had directed him, he stopped and stared. The shelves must have held 300 or 400 books, more than he had ever seen in one place before. Cloth-bound, leather-bound with gilded spines. Only a few had wooden covers. His eyes gobbled up the titles, picking out old favorites. The Travels of Jane Farstrider. The Essays of Willem of Menetches. His breath caught at the sight of a leather-bound copy of Voyages Among the Sea Folk. Tam had always wanted to read that. The thought of Tam sitting down with a pipe ready to read made him so depressed he wasn't even happy about the books anymore. A throat cleared behind him, and he suddenly realized he was not alone. Ready to apologize for his rudeness, he turned. He was used to being taller than almost everyone he met, but this time his eyes traveled up, and up, and up, and his mouth fell open. Then he came to the head, almost reaching the 10-foot ceiling. A nose as broad as the face, so wide it was more a snout than a nose. Eyebrows that hung down like tails, framing pale eyes as big as teacups. Ears that poked up to tufted points through a shaggy black mane. Trolloc! He let out a yell and tried to back up and draw his sword. His feet got tangled and he sat down hard instead. I wish you humans wouldn't do that, rumbled a voice as deep as a drum. The tufted ears twitched violently, and the voice became sad. So few of you remember us. It's our own fault, I suppose. Not many of us have gone out among men since the shadow fell on the ways. That's, 6 generations now. Right after the War of the 100 Years it was. The shaggy head shook and let out a sigh that would have done credit to a bull. Too long, and so few to travel and see, it might as well have been none. Rand sat there for a minute with his mouth hanging open, staring up at the apparition in wide-toed, knee-high boots and a dark blue coat that buttoned from neck to waist, then flared out to his boot, tops like a kilt over baggy trousers. In one hand was a book seeming tiny by comparison, with a finger broad enough for 3 marking the place. "I thought you were—" he began, then caught himself. "What are—" That was not any better. Getting to his feet, he gingerly offered his hand. "My name is Rand al'Thor." A hand as big as a ham engulfed his. It was accompanied by a formal bow. "Loial, son of Arendt, son of Halan. Your name sings in my ears, Rand al'Thor." That sounded like a ritual greeting to Rand. He returned the bow. "Your name sings in my ears, Loial, son of Arendt, son of Halan." "You humans are very excitable," Loial said in that bass rumble. "I had heard all the stories and read the books, of course, but I didn't realize. My first day in Camelin, I could not believe the uproar. Children cried, and women screamed, and a mob chased me all the way across the city, waving clubs and knives and torches, and shouting Trolloc. I'm afraid I was almost beginning to get a little upset. There's no telling what would have happened if a party of the Queen's guards hadn't come along." "A lucky thing," Rand said faintly. "Yes, but even the guardsmen seemed almost as afraid of me as the others. 4 days in Camelin now, and I haven't been able to put my nose outside this inn. Good Master Gill even asked me not to use the common room." His ears twitched. "Not that he hasn't been very hospitable, you understand. But there was a bit of trouble that first night. All the humans seemed to want to leave at once. Such screaming and shouting, everyone trying to get through the door at the same time. Some of them could have been hurt." Rand stared in fascination at those twitching ears. "I'll tell you, it was not for this I left the steading." "You're an Ogier!" Rand exclaimed. "Wait, 6 generations? You said the War of the 100 Years. How old are you?" He knew it was rude as soon as he said it, but Loial became defensive rather than offended. 90 years, the Ogier said stiffly. "In only 10 more I'll be able to address the stump. I think the elders should have let me speak, since they were deciding whether I could leave or not. But then, they always worry about anyone of any age going outside. You humans are so hasty, so erratic." He blinked and gave a short bow. "Please forgive me. I shouldn't have said that. But you do fight all the time, even when there's no need to." "That's all right," Rand said. He was still trying to take in Loial's age. Older than Sin Bui, and still not old enough to... He sat down in one of the high-back chairs. Loial took another, made to hold 2. He filled it. Sitting, he was at least as tall as most men standing. "At least they did let you go." Loial looked at the floor, wrinkling his nose and rubbing at it with one thick finger. "Well, as to that now. You see, the stump had not been meeting very long, not even a year, but I could tell from what I heard that by the time they reached a decision, I would be old enough to go without their permission. I am afraid they'll say I put a long handle on my axe, but I just left. The elders always said I was too hot-headed, and I fear I've proven them right. I wonder if they have realized I am gone yet. But I had to go." Rand had to stifle a laugh at the idea that this slow-paced creature was considered hot-headed for an Ogier. He could only imagine what the rest were like. He asked Loyal why it was he wanted to leave so badly, and the Ogier told him he had been reading adventure books and traveler's guides all his life and was so desperate to get out and see the world that he couldn't wait any longer. He had read all about the cities Ogier had built for humans after the breaking, but the thing he wanted to see most were the groves. Rand asked what the groves were, and Loyal described grand cultivated forests, mostly made of local flora, but with a few of the great trees to remind of the steading. "Didn't you want to see the cities?" Rand asked. "Like, here, didn't the Ogier build Camelin?" Loyal shrugged and said, "Working with stone was just something learned during the exile, in the time after the breaking, when we were still searching for the steading. It is a fine thing, I suppose, but not the true thing. You cannot make stone live, try as we did. There are still some Ogier who work with stone, but only because you humans keep damaging your cities with your wars. I did see some Ogier stonemasons in Cairhien, but they were from another steading, so they didn't know I wasn't supposed to be out on my own yet. Anyway, working with stone was something merely thrust upon us by the pattern. The groves came from the heart." Rand seemed surprised that Loyal was a believer in the pattern. Loyal responded, "Of course we believe. The wheel of time weaves the pattern of the ages, and lives are the threads it weaves. No one can tell how the thread of his own life will be woven into the pattern, or how the thread of a people will be woven. It gave us the breaking of the world, and the exile, and stone, and the longing, and eventually it gave us back the steading before we all died. Sometimes I think the reason you humans are the way you are is because your threads are so short. They must jump around in the weaving. Oh, there, I've done it again. The elders say you humans don't like to be reminded of how short a time you live. I hope I didn't hurt your feelings." Rand laughed and shook his head. "Not at all. I suppose it'd be fun to live as long as you do, but I never really thought about it. I guess if I live as long as old Sin Bowie, that'll be long enough for anybody." "He is a very old man?" Rand just nodded. He was not about to explain that old Sin Bowie was not quite as old as Loyal. "Well," Loyal said, "perhaps you humans do have short lives, but you do so much with them, always jumping around, always so hasty. And you have the whole world to do it in. We Ogier are bound to our steading." "You're outside." "For a time, Rand, but I must go back eventually. This world is yours and your kind's. The steading are mine. There's too much hurly-burly outside, and so much has changed from what I read about." "Well, things do change over the years. Some, anyway." "Some. Half the cities I read about aren't even there any longer, and most of the rest are known by different names. You take Cairhien. The city's proper name is Alcairayan Alen, Hill of the Golden Dawn. They don't even remember, for all of the sunrise on their banners. And the grove there. I doubt if it has been tended since the Trolloc Wars. It's just another forest now, where they cut firewood. The great trees are all gone, and no one remembers them. And here? Camelin is still Camelin, but they let the city grow right over the grove. We are not a quarter of a mile from the center of it right where we sit, from where the center of it should be. Not a tree of it left. I've been to Tyr and Ilion, too. Different names and no memories. There's only pasture for their horses where the grove was at Tyr, and at Ilion the grove is the king's park, where he hunts his deer, and none allowed inside without his permission. It has all changed, Rand. I fear very much that I will find the same everywhere I go. All the grove's gone, all the memories gone, all the dreams dead. You can't give up, Loyal. You can't ever give up. If you give up, you might as well be dead. Rand sank back in his chair as far as he could go, his face turning red. He expected the Ogier to laugh at him, but Loyal nodded gravely instead. Yes, that's the way of your kind, isn't it? The Ogier's voice changed as if he were quoting something. Till shade is gone, till water is gone, into the shadow with teeth bared, screaming defiance with the last breath, to spit in Sightblinder's eye on the last day. Loyal cocked his shaggy head expectantly, but Rand had no idea what it was he expected. A minute went by with Loyal waiting, then another, and his long eyebrows began to draw down in puzzlement. But he still waited, the silence growing uncomfortable for Rand. The great trees, Rand said, finally, just for something to break that silence. Are they like a Vindasora? Loyal sat up sharply. His chair squealed and cracked so loudly Rand thought it was going to come apart. You know better than that. You, of all people. Me? How would I know? Are you playing a joke on me? Sometimes you Aielmen think the oddest things are funny. What? I'm not an Aielman. I'm from the Two Rivers. I never even saw an Aielman. Loyal shook his head, and the tufts on his ears drooped outward. You see? Everything has changed, and half of what I know is useless. I hope I did not offend you. I'm sure your Two Rivers is a very fine place, wherever it is. Somebody told me, Rand said, that it was once called Manetherin. I'd never heard it, but maybe you... The Ogier's ears had perked up happily. Ah, yes, Manetherin. The tufts went down again. There was a very fine grove there. Your pain sings in my heart, Randalthor. We could not come in time. Loyal bowed, and Rand returned it, not wanting to be rude. He seemed to be truly trying to comfort Rand about the loss of the Netherin, as if it hadn't been something he only just learned about that happened 2,000 years ago. After a time, Loyal sighed. The wheel turns, he said, and no one knows it's turning. But you have come almost as far from your home as I have. A very considerable distance as things are now. When the ways were freely open, of course, but that is long past. Tell me, what brings you so far? Is there something you want to see too? Rand was gonna just tell him they had come to see the false dragon like everyone else, but he couldn't. Maybe it was because, despite being 90 years old, Loyal seemed no older than him. And it wasn't like he'd really been able to talk to Matt lately, but he seemed to trust the Ogier, and so he told him the whole unvarnished truth. He was horrified that it all came spilling out of him like that, but he continued on with the entire tale. When he started babbling about dreams, even the part of him that wanted to talk felt the hackles rising on the back of his neck. He bit his tongue, clamping his teeth shut. Breathing heavily through his nose, he watched the Ogier warily, hoping he thought he had meant nightmares. The light knew it all sounded like a nightmare, or enough to give anyone nightmares. Maybe Loyal would just think he was going mad. Maybe... Ta'viren, Loyal said. Rand blinked. What? Ta'viren. Loyal rubbed behind a pointed ear with one blunt finger and gave a little shrug. Elder Haman always said I never listened, but sometimes I did. Sometimes I listened. You know how the pattern is woven, of course. I never really thought about it, he said slowly. It just is. Yes. Well, not exactly. You see, the wheel of time weaves the pattern of the ages, and the threads it uses are lives. It is not fixed, the pattern, not always. If a man tries to change the direction of his life, and the pattern has room for it, the wheel just weaves on and takes it in. There is always room for small changes, but sometimes the pattern simply won't accept a big change, no matter how hard you try. You understand? Rand nodded. I could live on the farm or in Emmons Field, and that would be a small change. If I wanted to be a king, though. He laughed, and Loyal gave a grin that almost split his face in two. His teeth were white and as broad as chisels. Yes, that's it. But sometimes the change chooses you, or the wheel chooses it for you. And sometimes the wheel bends a life thread, or several threads, in such a way that all the surrounding threads are forced to swirl around it, and those force the other threads, and those still others, and on and on. That first bending to make the web, that is ta'virin, and there is nothing you can do to change it, not until the pattern itself changes. The web, Tamaral Island it's called, can last for weeks, or for years. It can take in a town, or even the whole pattern. Otter Hawkwing was ta'virin. So was Luz Theron Kinslayer, for that matter, I suppose. He let out a booming chuckle. Elder Haman would be proud of me. He always droned on, and the books about traveling were much more interesting, but I did listen sometimes. That's all very well, Rand said, but I don't see what it has to do with me. I'm a shepherd, not another Otter Hawkwing, and neither is Matt or Perrin. It's just ridiculous. I didn't say you were, but I could almost feel the pattern swirl just listening to you tell your tale, and I have no talent there. You are ta'virin, all right. You, and maybe your friends, too. The Ogier paused, rubbing the bridge of his broad nose thoughtfully. Finally, he nodded to himself as if he had reached a decision. I wish to travel with you, Rand. Rand was stunned. Did you forget the part about the constant peril? And what about your trees you wanted to go see? There is a fine grove in Tarvalon, and I hear the Aes Sedai keep it well tended. Besides, that isn't all I want to see, and even if you aren't the next Archer Hawkwing, at least for a time, the pattern will be shaping itself around you. And that's something even Elder Haman would want to see. Rand considered, and for a moment he thought that it would be nice to have some company that wasn't a brooding asshole who's always fondling a dagger. And Loyal seems like a chill dude who knows a lot about the world. But then he realized, wait, Loyal is like 10 feet tall. How the hell do you hide that from a Fade? I don't think that's the best idea, Loyal. Even if Moraine does find us here, we're sure to be in danger the whole way to Tarvalon. And if she doesn't... He went down a hole in his mind for a moment, thinking that they were all dead, but shook himself out of it. Loyal placed a hand on Rand's shoulder and said, Oh, Rand, I'm sure your friends are all right. Rand nodded his thanks. Will you at least hang out with me while you're here, though? Maybe play some stones? The only one who will talk to me is Master Gil, and he's so busy all the time. Of course I will, Rand said hoarsely. He cleared his throat and put on the best grin he could. And if we do meet in Tarvalon, you can show me the grove there. And that's the end of chapter 36.
I didn't say you were Taviran, but you're Taviran.
Well, maybe there's like different ranks. Will,
Yes.
are you soft launching a voice acting career? Is that what's happening here?
I mean, what did you think this podcast was?
Goes to show what I know.
Here, I thought this podcast is about talking about a book.
No, that's fine. No, your loyal voice, sensational.
Well, thank you.
I was very excited for it. I knew that Will was going to do a great job with it.
Yeah, it was like 2 or 3 weeks ago. Alex messaged me in a private message and was like, "If I did my math correctly, you're gonna get to introduce Loyal, and I can't wait."
I told Will, I said, I really wish that you had gotten to do it because I wanted to see your excitement at like meeting the Ogier. But I was also very, very excited because I knew Will was going to do Loyal such justice.
Yeah. Yeah, no, much better him than me.
Thank you.
And it just, I said this in our group message. I just finished, just so listeners get a perspective of how the transcripting is going. I just finished the transcript for episode 9, which came out last week. So we're all caught up on that. And at the end of that episode, Alex asked me if I had any thoughts or any theories or any questions about Ogier. And do you know what I said? I said no, because I haven't met one.
It was so fucking hard to keep that poker face on the video chat for that question.
Right. And so
obviously I knew what was coming, so
yeah. And we recorded that episode weeks ago.
Yep.
And then yesterday I opened the book and the first chapter that we read, I meet an Ogier.
Was that right after you finished the transcript?
Yes. Like a couple of hours. I took a couple of hours to just hang out. And then started, and yep. And here he is. So now here we are. And wouldn't you fucking know it, I have a lot of questions.
Well, before we get to your questions, I know I said, like, at the beginning of the podcast, we were going to wait until the end of the book to show, like, character art and pictures from the show. But I feel like it's really important to show you what Loyal looks like.
Yes. Show me.
So this is a piece of art. And listeners, I will post these on social so you can see what we're talking about. This is a piece of fan art.
Look at him. Wonderful.
He's got the long dangly eyebrows, the pointed tufted ears, thick ass fingers.
Yeah, big as fuck.
And this is what they did with him in the show. They changed it a good bit to make it possible to actually have him as a recurring character in the show. So it's very different, but it grew on me eventually.
Why does he look like Treebeard?
I don't know why the first thing I thought of was John Goodman.
No, I see it.
Wonderful. That's wonderful. Great. Love it.
Yeah. So
is it the lighting or did they tint his hair green?
I mean, I don't even see that on my monitor. That might be your monitor.
Okay, that's probably the monitor.
His
hair just looks brown to me.
Yeah, he's kind of blondish.
I was just wondering if it looks like there's just the slightest bit of a green tint, like they were trying to give that nature connection.
It might just be kind of like
it could just be the monitor or the lighting or something. Who knows?
It might just be like a reflection of the cloak or something.
Yeah, it could be. Because it definitely does look brown.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Which, it's weird, like, almost every depiction of him I could find had Loyal with, like, sandy brown hair, even though the description says his hair is black. The only depiction of him I saw with black hair was from the Wheel of Time comic books, and that image was very weird looking to me, so I did not want to share that.
That's fair. That's fair. The fan art is very, very close to how I pictured him.
Yeah.
Darker hair, and I did picture, instead of, like, skin, I pictured him, like, with a light layer of fur.
Yeah, they're not described as being fully fur covered. They just have a lot of hair.
Right. I'm just saying this is how I always pictured him. Because, even with full descriptions, we often still form other visuals in our own minds.
When I was searching for images, a weird thing I stumbled across, there was like a Reddit post where someone was like, this is how I always pictured Loyal, and the image with it was some kind of creature that was even scarier looking than a Trolloc. It was like hunched with like a long neck and had really long horns protruding off it. I'm like, what? What are you even talking about?
No, he's not scary. He's not scary.
No.
Unless you have megalophobia, I guess.
But yeah, so we've got Loyal, we've got... Let's back up, though, with the chapter discussion. And I want to know what you think about the things Master Gil was saying about Elida.
She a hoe.
What?
Alex said, she a hoe.
Well, read that back to the court.
Yeah, a show.
Spelled Haux.
Right. And I bet she stank too. He says that she has a way of feeling things, what's happened, what's going to happen, and it made me think of what Nynaeve can do, how she listens to the wind.
Okay.
And I'm not entirely sure. I guess it's like, I assumed, and we haven't met, that many Aes Sedai, but I kind of assumed that with Moiraine's explanation of the elements, that that was the only way to use the true source. So I don't know then if what Elida can do, this ability of hers or this ability of Nynaeve's, if that's related. Like, does Elida also listen to the wind, or if it's just like another ability that they have? Because there are other powers that exist, like with Min and with Elias and Perrin, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I kind of assumed that it was just those things, and then there wasn't anything else to do with how to channel the one power, which I guess is distinct from the true source. I think, maybe, I don't know. Yeah, but it is very interesting, and she seems really mean. I have heard a lot of things about her, and none of them have been nice.
And she and the rest of Caemlyn, it seems, don't fuck with Tom Marilyn.
No, he made a lot of enemies.
Tom, what did you do?
Well, they're just a bunch of haters, obviously.
Like, it honestly, it's pretty fortunate for the boys that he had one friend left in Caemlyn, and that's just Master Gil.
Just one.
And he was like, hey, don't say that to anybody else. Okay, don't.
And Master Gil is a ride or die too. Like,
clearly.
Yeah.
Clearly. It makes me wonder if Tom did something so huge for him that, like, Gil owes him and just never doubts him. So like, no, just mentioning Tom's name, Gil is like, Headcock, what you need?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, how
German
they met.
Shepherd loyalty head tilt.
And then we've also got Matt fully back on his bullshit.
They're all dead. Oh my fucking god.
Yeah.
I remember the first time I got to that part, my first read through, and I messaged you, and I'm like, I hate this. I hate him so much. I can't handle that type of shit.
Yep. Even like that was like me on my worst depressed days when I was like 17.
Mm-hmm.
He's not much older than that.
Not much.
It's kind of it's kind of interesting to me because it feels like entering the confinement almost, and the multitudes of people within Camelin almost made Matt like 10 times worse immediately.
Yeah. Well, he's even on their on their travels, the thing that would trigger him the most was his suspicion of other people. And now there's like bazillions of people around.
Right.
So, and also I kind of feel like when Rand was like sick and like going through it, that allowed Matt's like innate caretaker to kind of push through the darkness for just
his
a
more
little
natural
bit.
instincts.
Yeah, but now that Rand is better, Matt's let the demons win again.
Right.
Well, I mean, and what makes it difficult is that he's not entirely wrong to be suspicious.
Yeah.
Right. Because for 3 straight days.
Yeah.
Every time they turned around, there was somebody else who was actively trying to kill them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think I said at one point, I put a note in one of those chapters. I was like, well, this isn't great for his paranoia.
Exactly.
He's already, really bad, and this is not helping.
Right.
So it's tough. It was funny that Rand said we need to get our strength up to go to Tar Valon, and Matt, who had, by the way, before they found the inn, was like, let's just go to Tar Valon, is now bitching about having to go to Tar Valon. Babe.
Yeah.
I was literally about to say the same thing.
Make up your mind.
He's really inconsistent, and it's exhausting.
Yeah. So it's, again, I would love for a Matt POV at all. What is going on in his head? All he wants to do is fondle his dagger.
Absolutely nothing. The hamster is dead and the wheel has cobwebs. And that's why the demons from the dagger are winning.
Yeah.
When Rand was sick, the hamster had to reanimate for a little bit. That was just necromancy.
Yeah. Well, okay. And one more thing before we dive back into the loyal of it all. Master Gil mentioning that Camelin has been like overrun with rats now.
Yes.
Like even more so than usual.
Yes.
That cats are expensive because of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I did notice that.
In a city like Camelin, you should be able to walk out the door and kick 3 strays. So
Well, or that even with all the cats that there are, it's still not enough.
Right.
So they're at a premium.
Yeah.
And it's, I noted, I was like, didn't we also learn that rats are also considered the minions of the Dark One?
Uh-huh.
That vermin, which is also horrible PR for rats. Sorry, rats. You're great.
My poor babies.
The
slander.
The Dark One gets his hooks into any carrion feeders, it seems.
Mm-hmm.
Before we move on to loyal, once more, Rand wishes he had Perrin's way with girls.
That's
yes,
so funny.
Right. I fully meant to bring that up again. I left that in the description on purpose.
Another excellent
again.
Another excellent bit. Absolutely.
And you kind of left this part out, Will, but the serving girl that tells him that the guard sticks their head in every now and then is the same girl.
Yeah.
And so I always think of it as her, like, flirting with him a little, like, oh, they do that sometimes.
Like,
you know what I mean?
You've got nothing to worry about. You're
Being
a good Queens man.
Because in case we forgot, Rand is super hot.
Right.
He's the hottest.
He's a hottie McHottie.
He's a 6'6" ginger.
He's a McDreamy.
Is he hot or is he just tall?
Right.
Is he hot or is he just tall and
like
white? Well, it's a question I ask myself every day, and I don't like my answers. I don't like my answers.
Listen. I mean, speaking of tall, though, now we can get into Loyal.
If Loyal is a hasty Ogier, I think I would scream myself into oblivion dealing with any other ones, because I cannot handle that. If that's haste, I hate to see what normal is for them.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, like, he's 90 years old and still considered a juvenile, so they have really long lifespans, it seems.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that just kind of, by perspective, draws things out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's not like they don't have time, and it's also like they can't afford to take the time because nothing's getting to them in the steadings where they live.
Yeah.
Right? They're not under threat there. It made me think of, like, thinking about how Ogier society works, or at least the way that Loyal talks about it. It made me think of, like, Atlantis, kind of. There's like these ancient societies just hidden away, just doing their own thing, just functioning, just going, but they conceive of time and how to do things on such an incomprehensible scale for, like, a country that's only been around for 250 years. Like, how do you even make sense of that? Like, yeah, he said by the time that they would make a decision, it would have been another 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
And they just do that. How often do they do the stump? What is that?
Yeah, and
they hadn't been.
I also glossed over Rand, thinking, like, man, Master Alvear gets antsy when a village council meeting lasts more than half a day.
Right.
And anything longer than that would make Master Luhan scream.
Yeah. And he says they hadn't even been going for that long, just almost a year.
Like,
that's insane. That's insane. And it's probably, like, thinking about it again, now we met one and he talked, and so now I have questions. Like, I can't imagine that they're just meeting and deliberating the entire time. Like, even at these big conferences that you hear about, there's downtime. So they're probably, like, I would imagine they could spend however long hammering out some issue, deliberating some question, and then they just kind of vibe. You know, there's feasts or dances or whatever they do, and then they continue the business. But for it to go on for a year and that not be that long, compared to what?
Yeah, I think about it like the world's worst Senate floor hearing. Like,
oh my God. Yeah, imagine if Cory Booker actually just kept talking.
Yeah.
Imagine if he was still talking.
I was just about to bring that up.
Yeah. Just fucking kill me. Yeah. So, Alex, I agree. I would get antsy.
Yeah.
I think because, I mean, it's obvious that the stump is some type of council meeting, right? Even Rand gathers that much and he's oblivious.
Yep.
It's the way that Loyal talks makes me think that, like, a single member of the stump speaking would just be a fucking filibuster.
Yeah. And they each take turns doing that.
Right. And I also will bet if they have more than one thing to, like, work out and discuss, they do not move on to the next one.
No.
Until they have finished with the first. There's no jumping around on the docket.
Yeah, that's what I would imagine. It's
because that's just how I gather it.
like every Ogier has to give their long-winded, slowly delivered essay, and then they have to go back with rebuttals, and that takes forever. And then, yeah, it sounds absolutely mind-numbing. And it seems to me like Loyal might be the first ever Ogier with ADHD.
Okay, now here's the other thing. We don't know how many members are in the stump. There could be 3, there could be 5.
There could be 1,000. Like, and they take their turn.
It could be all the Ogiers considered adult.
Yeah, every adult Ogier in that setting could be talking. We don't know.
Like, I can only imagine how bad it would be with just 5. Imagine anything more than that, and it's 5 is barely comprehensible to me.
Yeah. But I imagine it's like a public forum as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right? Because Loyal says that he has to be 100 to address the stump.
Right.
Meaning there must be like a platform for people who aren't members of whatever executive council is going on here, whoever makes the decisions, whether that's just the elders or whatever else. So there must be time then allotted, like, I don't know, 6 months for people who aren't members of this council to address the stump and have their concerns addressed, whether it's over territory or resources or whether they can leave. So I don't blame Loyal for being like, you know what, I'm just going to go.
And it seems like, to me anyway, the idea of one citizen wanting to leave being a thing for the entire council to address, that seems really like small. So how many like small things does the stump gather to discuss?
Right.
Like
because more specifically, this is what is considered an underage citizen.
Yeah.
All we know for sure is that in 10 more years he'll be allowed to address the stump, but we don't know if he's considered a full adult at that point. We don't know if in 10 years he could leave the state without him. Maybe it would be another, 15 after that. Maybe he has to be 125 before he could have left without that,
Mm-hmm.
We don't know because their concept of time makes no sense.
I guess the best parallel I could come up with is this would be like a teenager wanting to get emancipated from their parents. Mm-hmm. Now imagine if that had to be like the entire city council talking about that instead of just a judge. Like
Exactly.
Or like you have to go before the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
to do it, which means you have to get added to the court docket. Right.
Take months to years.
Yeah.
Honestly, getting added to the Supreme Court docket is a much better comparison than the county judge. But yeah, no, this is a little bit of an oxymoron, but the Ogier be wild.
Yeah, wild Ogier. That doesn't compute.
I will say that like sometimes my brain does this thing when I'm reading where like I will oversimplify characters into like cartoons and shit that I've seen.
Yeah.
And one of the things my brain will put in as a filler for Ogier is the creatures from Where the Wild Things Are.
Yeah. I feel like that's kind of what I thought.
See,
Loyal is a big ass Labubu.
Not a Labubu.
No, please no, dear God.
Or maybe like the Beast from Beauty and the Beast. Maybe that's what I thought.
I was gonna say Ludo.
Yeah.
Some weird cross between Ludo and Beast is actually kind of where I land with him. Like Ludo in the Beast's clothes.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah. Like I can see that, but that's still to me that leans to Trolloc.
Yeah, well, I mean, Ludo's directly out of Where the Wild Things Are anyway.
Yeah.
So that is a whole different fandom for a whole different podcast, because I could talk on Labyrinth for a year.
Maybe we'll do a bonus episode at some point.
Just an Alex nerd out episode. One thing I really found interesting is the Ogier access to history. Like, the way Loyal spoke about places he read about. He's got books that talk about places that no longer exist or have changed their names entirely. And I mean, we know that the Ogier are long-lived and that they're old, and you know they're safe in the studying, which means all of their documents are also safe too. But that is kind of even more mind-blowing to me, how much knowledge each individual study must possess.
Mm-hmm. It's giving Library of Alexandria.
Yeah.
I mean, again, like, Loyal is 90 years old and he basically hasn't even graduated high school yet. He's been studying for all that time.
He speaks of Elder Hammond, and to me that says this man is, or this Ogier is his mentor.
Mm-hmm.
Right? This is probably his tutor, the one that has helped upbring him, at least in his education.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because he taught Loyal about the wheel and Taviran, and he's also taught him about, you know, the books on traveling, and what was the other thing? He mentioned so many other things.
Yeah.
That he has either learned from the Elder or read in their books. So their access to knowledge is probably mind-blowing.
Yeah, and that's the thing I wanted to bring up too, which is Rand being surprised that the Ogier believe in the pattern. That seems like a strange thing for him to even consider, because we haven't seen any alternative belief, and they treat the pattern more like fact than a belief system.
Right.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't the Ogier believe in it? Like, that...
Maybe it's just a touch
on... It's like saying, I didn't think Ogier believed in gravity.
It feels to me like maybe Jordan was trying to touch on the idea of Rand suddenly being exposed to a completely different peoples and not understanding how they work or think. And that was one way to show that.
I suppose, but I don't know. It just... He's never even been presented with an alternative to those beliefs. So why would he assume anyone would believe anything different is my question.
Right.
You know, maybe at this point, writing the first book, Robert Jordan had plans to have other religions, and that just never panned out. But, like,
it's like just a dropped off plot or something.
It's just treated as fact. Like, it's...
It is, and everybody knows it.
Yeah.
It makes me think, one of the concepts that I encountered in graduate study is, the term is episteme, EPISTEME. It's a term for like a whole unit of time in which certain organizing concepts about the passage of time and the development of knowledge exist. So we are in an episteme, and then, for example, before anybody codified what gravity was and how it worked, what do you suppose people believed in? They didn't have gravity before, the 1600s. They had something, they had physics, they had buoyancy or what have you, but to explain why things stayed put is an entirely different system of understanding for why that works the way that it does. Or it would be like saying, how did people record time before the Gregorian calendar? What do you mean you know of a time before January existed? It's just a totally different way of looking at the world and how history progresses. Because I still don't know if the wheel of time is a physical object or if it's like an organizing concept for how time and history and destiny and lives are considered to work as they progress. And I don't know if the wheel of time is something that is specific as a concept within this universe to this age. So if Ogier, the way that they talk about Ogier makes it seem like they existed before the breaking. So before the breaking, were there other perspectives on how things worked? Then that the wheel of time weaves the pattern of the ages, and that's the only way that anything works, as like fact as opposed to an ideology. That I don't know.
And like
so that's what I thought, is because it seems like they're so ancient that maybe, they wouldn't have known something before the way things are now here.
Right.
All of that is definitely like a super valid analysis. My thing is just like, Rand is dumb. Rand doesn't know anything. Like, he's a little baby shepherd who only has one, like, he has a very limited worldview. So why would he ever think anyone else would think differently?
Right.
Without having ever been presented that, because like his worldview is constantly being challenged. That particular thing has not been. That's my only question there.
Yeah. It's a good question. I don't know why Rand is very open-minded like that.
Yeah, it's that just feels, I don't know.
Yeah, it is odd.
It does lead into some very good like metaphysical explanations. So I mean, from what Loyal has explained in this chapter, especially once we introduce the concept of ta'veren, it does kind of feel like the wheel is a force on the world, like gravity, like somewhere between something as concrete as gravity and something as ephemeral as karma.
Right.
But yeah, we have this new concept of ta'veren, which is like main character syndrome.
It's
as a device.
Yeah, plot ordained. Yeah, plot ordained.
It's built-in plot armor.
Yep. And Loyal seems pretty convinced that applies to Rand and possibly the other boys as well.
It puts the lightning strike into a whole new perspective.
Yeah, did the pattern ordain for that to happen so that they could leave?
Possibly. I actually, to go back, because I said last episode that I had a theory about that, because Rand's sickness reminded me of how Moraine talked about Nynaeve, the first time that she channeled, and how she had that, like to heal Egwene, and then she had that period of however long where she was like chills and fevered by turns, and then just kind of got over it. That's what it made me think of. So as of right now, it seems between like the Deus Ex Machina of the lightning strike being specifically where they were at, plus then the sickness afterwards that he and just got better. That's my theory right now, is that he channeled the lightning.
That would be not very good if that was the case.
That's true. That's true. That would be very bad for him.
Okay, but we can still tie that into ta'veren. If that is the case, was him being ta'veren what allowed him to channel? Did the wheels say, you need out of here, so I'm going to make it so you can get out of here, and we're going to do that by you doing this? Because there's still an element of like needing the balance, right? The wheel's like, I can save you, but you're going to be sick afterwards. So that could have essentially had, like, the ta'veren like pulled it out of him, basically. Is kind of a potential option for that too. Or it just happened as a desperation measure, the way it happened with Nynaeve.
And then things change to accommodate that.
Right.
Or like that's just the rules of how interacting with the true source works.
Right. There's a lot there that are ifs and maybes, and
Yeah.
Could have.
Yeah. But to come back to what we're talking about here with Taviran and everything, it's really interesting to have this framework for understanding that sometimes people can do things that have vastly expansive impacts on people other than themselves. Talking about it as part of the pattern gives a sort of foreordainment to the entire thing, as opposed to history being something or destiny being something that people do with the choices that they make, as opposed to something that already exists and everything that they do in their lives is leading up to something that was already chosen for them.
Right.
John Calvin, are you there? um yeah, so that makes it interesting. And then again, something I brought up way early about people they constantly are like, the wheel weaves as the wheel wills, whether that's like pragmatism or fatalism, like a resignation, like it's not worth trying to change anything because it's already been decided.
Like it is what
Or
it is.
yeah, I don't.
Yeah.
So the framework is interesting, but it also makes me kind of chafe a little bit. And again, that's because I don't know,
Well,
just how metaphysical the wheel is.
Loyal does explain that, like, you do have the ability to make decisions. Most people do. Most non-Taviran people. They, small changes, sure, whatever, like Rand said, whether he decided to stay on the farm or move to Emmons Field, that wouldn't be a big deal. The wheel would accommodate that. But if he just one day decided, I'm going to be a king, maybe the wheel would push back on that a little bit.
I mean, would it be the wheel or would it be Queen Morghese? Like, this is the thing. Like, logistically, the logistics of establishing yourself as a king in a place that already has a queen, right? Whether that's the thing or whether it's the wheel and the pattern of the ages being like, no, you're not allowed to do this, or whether it's Queen Morghese being like, hey, seize him. Maybe it's both. I don't know.
Right. But then when it comes to Viren, it seems like the wheel has a much stronger hand in the shape of their lives and the lives of people they interact with. So,
well, and my question then is the pattern of the ages something that is being woven or something that already is and is then like being backfilled by the events of the plot? That I also don't know.
I don't know. It seems like just again trying to limit it just to what we've gotten from Loyal in this chapter and the little
it's fucking hard
dribbles from Moiraine previously. Yes, it is very hard to limit my scope here. It does seem like the wheel is constantly being woven. It is actively like it isn't set in stone already. Things can change the direction because
but it is following a pattern as it weaves.
Yes, specifically because Moiraine has mentioned that the Dark One can like press his thumb on the pattern. Basically, the Dark One can change how the wheel is weaved. I think that was that kind of touched on in one of y'all's chapters coming up. A little bit,
so.
Yeah, I think that's kind of mentioned.
Not in mine.
I don't know that it's. I don't think it's Moiraine, but yeah, and
like I feel like Lan says something about it.
Yeah.
So
that sounds right.
We'll get to that and we can discuss that a bit more in a little bit.
Yep.
If I can change the subject just a little bit.
Yeah.
One thing I really liked about this chapter and the meeting with Loyal was Rand immediately trying to be polite and match Loyal's greetings.
Yes.
And the things that he said. And it made me think back to when they were leaving the Tinkers, the traveling people, and like Perrin, giving him a look, and he's like, just because I don't set any store by it doesn't mean I have to be rude. You know what I mean? And Rand just immediately jumps in and tries to be as polite as possible. And I think that was part of Rand's one, I think is part of his growth that we have seen of him being observant, because he mentioned, like, he thinks that it's of it as like ceremonial almost.
Mhm.
But also Tam just probably raised him to be polite as fuck.
Yeah.
And we
Probably.
all know that Nynaeve would beat the hell out of him if he
Absolutely.
wasn't.
Yeah. Between Tam and Nynaeve, Rand has some semblance of manners.
Right.
When
More
he
than Matt,
thinks about
probably
it.
less than Perrin. But yeah, that was something I really, really liked, because he does it twice in that meeting.
Yeah, like within the same thing, he's he stops himself and then
No, that's not even what I'm talking
or
about.
he mirrors, because Loyal says something and is like, "Oh, I'm sorry," and then bows, and then Rand bows back.
Yeah,
It's
that
really,
was the other
really
thing
funny.
I was talking about.
I really like it.
Is him mirroring Loyal with the bow was the other thing I was talking about. But yes, you are right about him being like, no, wait, that's rude. Can't say that.
How old are you?
Never ask an Ogier their age.
Yep. And there was also the moment where it almost happened, but then Rand had no idea what to go back to it when Loyal started quoting shit because he thought Rand was Aiel, and Rand's just sitting there like, what is happening?
Absolute look of bamboozlement that I picture on Rand's face.
Just the loading circle spinning right on his forehead.
Didn't study for the pop quiz.
The old school apple rainbow. Circling. I just dated myself, I know.
Also, very interesting that Loyal thought that Rand was Aiel. Does that mean that all Aiel are tall hotties? I gotta know. Now I'm even more curious.
Yeah. Because he was
the other
convinced.
Thing we learned, and the other thing we learned about Aiel is they have an odd sense of humor. At least according to Loyal. But Rand's never met one.
Right.
Yeah. Mentions of,
interesting.
Like, till shade is gone, till water is gone. Something about spitting in Sightblinder's eye.
If we go back to the previous, I believe it was the last episode, Flint, you might be able to confirm this since you just did the transcripts, I think. Well, not the last episode, but you know what I mean. I think it was episode 9 or episode 10, where they talk about the Aiel coming over the Dragon Wall. Right? That's what's called the Dragon Wall?
Yes.
I am absolutely blanking on what it's called.
I know the mountain range is the spine of the world, but I think the Dragon Wall is a thing there.
Like the pass.
Yeah.
Is how I picture. But anyway, I'm going back because I don't remember if we kept this in the recording or not, but we did show Flint a map. And if you look at that map, they are at opposite ends.
At this point, that episode hasn't come out yet, so.
Right, but I couldn't remember if we had done that on recording or off.
It was.
But my
point
on recording. Is Two Rivers and the Aiel Waste are at opposite ends of that map.
Mm-hmm.
So, and Rand's never met an Aiel, but he looks like one, according to Loyal.
Yeah. How far did Tam go?
Tam, what did you?
Where did he go?
How far did you have to go to find a wife?
Right, literally. Maybe you went to the waist and then came back.
Like, bruh. I thought you were daddy. Like, you couldn't have found a wife closer to home.
I'm so fascinated by the Ogier, and like that they're stonemasons, but really, truly, honestly, they're like arborators.
Yeah.
They work with trees. They're nature sculptures. That's so interesting. And he's like, it's fine. At like Camelin, which we talked about being like mind boggling. He's like, it's whatever. What?
It's just stone.
Like,
show me the groves then. Show me the great trees.
That was our day job. Like, that's not what we wanted to do, but
yeah, that was something that was thrust upon us.
The bills. That's what paid the bills.
Yeah, we had nothing going for us while we were looking for where the steading went in the breaking, so we just kind of helped you guys rebuild. And I may be fully talking out of my ass here, but
we all did that anyway.
I don't I don't know that it was. I don't remember if it was even mentioned or not, and I could be fully incorrect about this. But was Whitebridge the bridge an Ogier sculpture, basically?
I don't recall that being mentioned at
I
all.
don't think. I think Doman had a theory that it was built or something, but not by Ogier. I don't think.
Okay, I couldn't remember if that was like an Ogier thing or if it was like something left from before the breaking, like from the Age of Legends. I can't remember. But yeah, apparently Camelin was built by Ogier. We got Kyrian mentioned that Ogier are actively currently working at rebuilding.
Oh, it's Tom. Tom says that he thought it was a remnant from the Age of Legends made by Aes Sedai. That's all that we hear about the bridge itself.
Okay, gotcha.
I think.
Well, then, I was wrong. Never mind.
I found it in the transcript because I have them.
There we go. Now we know.
All right. Were there any other particular points from this? There was so much lore in this chapter. We're an hour and a half in. Mm-hmm. We're still on the first chapter of the episode.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's really interesting that Rand likes to read so much. I feel like for a farm boy from a backwater like that, Rand is probably very unique in that. Like, I'm sure his friends can read and write, obviously, but I feel like being as exposed to books as he was from Tam is a very unique part of his upbringing.
Yeah.
Him walking into that library and being in awe.
But
I bet it was.
I think in the very early chapters, it was mentioned, like, on the rare occasions they got peddlers like Pad and Fane, like, the hot commodity was books. Like, everyone had their things they needed, but then they would always sell out of books as soon as they got to town. And, like, yeah, Emmonsfield is a surprisingly literate town for how backwoods it is. Like, even...
yeah, I don't remember that at all, so I'm going to take your word for it.
Bran Alvear has a little library in the Wine Spring Inn that the boys would read books from. They would, he had maps that they would pore over, and
he had one map.
Okay, he had one map.
It wasn't a very good map, by the way.
But yeah, so Tam wasn't the only bookworm in town.
And I wasn't trying to suggest that he was the only one. I just was thinking that he was probably among the minority there.
Yeah.
But I didn't think I like I said, I don't remember the thing about books selling out with the peddlers. So just in my mind I didn't make that connection.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, everybody likes stories.
Yeah.
So it would make sense if kids who learned stories and saw people reading them stories from books would want to learn eventually how to read the stories themselves.
Parents buy books from the peddlers and then they sit around the fire and read it as a family after dinner, kind of a thing.
All of the kids grow up reading The Adventures of Jane Farstrider. Like they've all mentioned that being like their favorite book. So that's why Rand pointed that out first when he was looking at the library at the Queen's Blessing. But yeah, they obviously didn't have a huge amount of books because this little fucking library at an inn is the biggest library Rand has ever seen.
Right.
And he's like mind blown by a little fucking side room at an inn.
Yeah. I have two quick things. One is funny. One is not intended to be funny. But when he says he's talking to the woman and she points him to the library and he says, "Can you tell Master Gill that Randall Thor is looking for him?" Babe, your government name? Did you want to give him your home address also?
Date of birth.
Yeah.
Security.
Yeah, your SSN. Your mother's maiden name. Oops. Well, maybe not that one.
Wow. Yeah, true. I didn't even really think about that. Why did he give her his full name there?
Sure did.
Like,
hey, what? Babe, that's a stranger.
Like,
but she flirted with him.
Yeah, well.
But like,
so she's probably fine.
You stick out like a sore thumb. You could have just said me, and she could have given a description, and he would have known who she was talking about.
Yeah, the tall one.
The one with red hair is looking for you. He's in the library.
Yeah. And then the second thing, one of the things that Loyal also talks about is the ways, capital W ways.
Yes, I wanted to bring this up too.
Yeah. So now I think, as of right now, I think less that I thought that it was like a power or like magic, and maybe that it's maybe it is. But if Ogier can also use them, then maybe it is like pathways through nature, like as the crow flies type of ways to go. And then you can use those like secret paths if you know how to get to them, which is maybe still magic, but like earth magic or nature magic or something.
That makes sense, especially since he mentioned that the ways were now closed.
Right. So if it's something that had been open and then are no longer, then maybe it's less like sparkly astral projecting ways and like actual just like walking.
Maybe it was,
but it's like quick travel.
Like a nature wave, maybe perhaps to connect the growths.
Maybe. Actually. Yeah, it's like the Deku tree. You go in and then you come back out, but you come out of another tree.
Could be.
Yeah, that would be an interesting.
Yeah, we're really like getting little drips and drabs of what the hell the ways are.
They got me.
This first book especially, so frustrating for me. Because just need more information. They're freaking it's lore edging.
Truly, like there's so much world building to do, and it's like, yeah, I get it. We need a plot to have a book, but like, just tell me more.
Right.
Yeah, where's the almanac?
Oh, that's called The Wheel of Time Companion, and you cannot read that until you finish the entire series.
I won't.
I do have a copy of it. It's a giant tome.
Yeah. I have the Hyrule Historia. So
it is not as tall as the Hyrule Historia, but it is thicker. So I don't know for sure how they compare content wise.
Yeah, just to say I love a compendium.
Yeah, I've never owned a copy of the Hyrule Historia, but I want it so bad.
I want the one. I can't think of the name of it. I want the one for Tolkien's world.
The Silmarillion.
Yes, thank you. I'm over here going, it's not Necronomicon.
No, not quite. I don't think that's real.
No. I knew it was the fucking word, but it was the only one coming to my mind. I am sure that Master Gil probably has a copy of all of those books.
Probably. Knowing H.P. Lovecraft, the Necronomicon was probably just like a world book.
Right. Somehow it slipped into Brandland and Master Gil got a copy of it.
Yeah.
Just don't read it out loud. That's Dark Friend's favorite book.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Master Gil keeps that one hidden away. It's not in the library.
Oh my god, wait. What about the Evil Dead then? Oh my god, have those been Wheel of Time movies the whole time?
Piter just pulls out the Necronomicon and starts reading from it aloud because his dumbass would.
He absolutely would. Turns him and all of his friends into ghosts, just like in the second Fable game when the brothers do it.
Most ambitious crossover in history.
Yes. Did not know I needed that until now, but here we are. All right, is that everything for this chapter? We think
that's all I have.
I think we've well and truly covered it.
Yeah. Okay.
Remember at the very, like in the first episode, we said they're not all going to be this long. And we've had like 2 other ones that have been like 2.5 hours. Sick.
Guess what? They're all that long.
Great. Oops. My bad.
Thankfully, the next 2 chapters aren't crazy lore dumps. So.
Thank God. I do not want to repeat a last episode. That sucked. So the next chapter is chapter 37, and this chapter is called The Long Chase. The icon is a sun, which, as we've already seen in chapter 30, represents the White Cloaks. So, ew. However, this chapter begins with Nynaeve holding the reins to 3 horses belonging to their group, as she tries to see into the darkness, looking for Lan and Moraine. Lan had passed her the reins and told her to keep the horses quiet before he and Moraine left. Mandarb, Lan's horse, had only permitted her to hold his reins because Lan himself had passed them to her. When she had tried to reach for them without him doing it, Mandarb got a little testy. Aldib, however, gives her a nudge to tell her that she would like the same pats that she was giving to her own horse. Nynaeve, of course, obliges her. After they left White Bridge, the bridge and the town, they passed through villages that were so normal to Nynaeve that they seemed unreal at this point. They followed the road to Camelin until Moraine sat forward and stared long and hard eastward. And when she eventually sat back, she said, "The wheel weaves as the wheel wills," she murmured, "but I cannot believe it weaves an end to hope. I must first take care of that which I can be certain, and it will be as the will weaves." And then she turned her mare north, off the road and into the forest. One of the boys was in that direction, with the coin that Moraine had given him. Lan followed. A few days after they left the road, Moraine jumps up from her seat beside the fire with wide eyes and whispers, "It is gone." "He is," Nynaeve began, but couldn't bring herself to finish the question. "He did not die, but he no longer has the token," Moraine replies. She then sits back down and goes on to say that in the morning they'll keep on as they have been, and once she is close enough, she can find him without the coin. Later that night, as Lan slept, neither Nynaeve nor Moraine did. Nynaeve simply couldn't fall asleep in her worry, and she could tell that Moraine, though her eyes were closed, was still awake as she sat upright. A long time later, Moraine opens her eyes and with a smile looks at Nynaeve. "He has regained the coin, Wisdom. All will be well." Then she really did lay down and go to sleep. Still unable to sleep, Nynaeve falls into a sort of fugue state as she thinks back to Whitebridge and how it's hard for her to now believe all will be well. She's suddenly startled out of this fugue state by a hand on her arm, and after flailing a bit and going for her knife, she realizes it was only Lan waking her. "You are needed," he tells her. He hobbles the horses to secure them, and then taking her by the arm, leads her through the night. He's completely silent as he moves through the trees and nearly invisible in the dark with his water cloak. She begrudgingly admits to herself she'd never have been able to follow him if he hadn't been holding onto her arm. They reach a low rise where Moraine is already crouching and kneel with her as Lan directs Nynaeve's attention down the side of the hill. There, she sees rows of tents. "White cloaks, 200, maybe more. There's good water down there, and the lad we're after," Lan says to her. "In the camp?" she asks. "In the middle," he confirms. "Moraine can point right to him. I went close enough to see that he's under guard." "A prisoner? Why?" Lan replies that he doesn't know, because they wouldn't normally be interested in a village boy unless something made them suspicious. And while it isn't hard to make them suspicious, he is still worried. "How are you going to free him?" It was not until he glanced at her that she realized how much assurance there had been in her that he could march into the middle of 200 men and come back with the boy. Well, he is a warder. Some of the stories must be true, she thinks to herself. He replies that he can get them out, but that he'd likely be in no shape for stealth. He being the one they're after. And asks her if she's willing to take a chance to distract the White Cloaks. She replies, of course she is, if it were to help an Idman's fielder. He pointed into the darkness again, beyond the tents, This time she can make out nothing but shadows. They're horse lines. If the picket ropes are cut, not all the way through, but enough so that they break when Moraine creates a diversion, the White Cloaks will be too busy chasing their own horses to come after us. There are 2 guards on that side of camp, beyond the picket lines, but if you are half as good as I think you are, they'll never see you. She swallowed hard. Stalking rabbits was one thing. Guards, though, with spears and swords? So, he thinks I'm good, does he? I'll do it. Lan then warns her that there are also wolves around. He says he's seen 2, so it was likely there were more, but also notes that it was as if the wolves had wanted him to see them. But anyway, they shouldn't bother her. She replies in a sweetly sarcastic tone that she never would have known, having only grown up around shepherds. Nynaeve then hesitates for a moment as she looks back down at the camp of 200 soldiers, then determinedly loosens her knife and starts to go. Moraine grabs her arm as she passes. Take care, the Aes Sedai said softly. Once you cut the ropes, return as quickly as you can. You are a part of the pattern too, and I would not risk you any more than any of the others if the whole world was not at risk in these days. Nynaeve rubs the spot Moraine had grabbed. Her grip had hurt. Moraine had already turned back away, and Lan was also gone. Nynaeve ties her skirts up to give herself better mobility and then scampers away down the hill. After making some noise, she forces herself to slow down and be quiet. After all, this isn't a competition with the warder. She makes her way around the camp through the woods and feels relief when the smell of horse finally reaches her nose. She gets down onto her stomach at this point and crawls upwind towards the smell. She gets so close that she is almost on top of the guards before she sees them. Here they came, one from each direction, bright as a torchlight with their white cloaks in the darkness illuminated partially by the moon. Then, almost directly in front of where she was trying to make herself appear to be the ground, they stop, face to face, spears on their shoulders. All is well with the night, one white cloaked shape announced. The light illumine us and protect us from the shadow. All is well with the night, the other replied. The light illumine us and protect us from the shadow. With that, they turned and marched off into the darkness again. She sees that she needs to get past their post. Just beyond them are the horses. She waits. She counts to herself as the guards make their circuit twice more. Each time was the exact same count. Each meeting followed the exact same exchange of words, and nothing more. Neither looked to either side, and she wonders to herself if they would have even seen her if she'd been standing. She waits until just before they disappear into the dark for the 3rd time, before scampering across to the horses in a quick crouch, but slows as she nears them so as not to startle and draw attention. She sees that there are multiple picket lines, and in the dim moonlight, the end posts are difficult to see until she was pretty much at them. As she reaches the first one, she realizes the horse on the end is looking right at her. She freezes, her heart pounding in an attempt to escape her chest. One whinny. That's all it'll take to bring the guards. Just one. The horse remains silent. Without allowing herself to relax, keeping an eye on the horse, she reaches out and begins to cut at the picket line, feeling with her free hand how far she's gone, and stopping when only a few scarce strands are all that's left. She slowly moves to the next line, keeping an eye on the horse to see if it was still watching her. Luck has it in for her, however, and the next 3 picket lines go smoother as the horses all remain asleep. At the 4th picket, she cuts her thumb and makes a noise. The horses remain sleeping, but the guards may have heard her downwind as they are. She decides to leave the last picket line and go, but something stops her, and she sets her jaw in her stubborn way and goes to the last picket line. There, right before her eyes, on the very end of the line, our queen, our grace, our eternal light, there is Bella. She is safe and picketed with the other horses. Nynaeve cannot mistake her squat, shaggy shape among all the other horses, and for another to look like her here, now, was too much of a coincidence. Suddenly, she is shaking. She is so glad that she chose not to skip this line. If Bella is here, then Egwene had to be in the camp, too. They would already have been riding double with one more person, but now with Egwene added, they were sure to be slowed and caught, and some of them would die. She was as certain of this as if she were listening to the wind. That stuck a spike of fear into her belly. Fear of how she was certain. This had nothing to do with weather or crops or sickness. Why did Moraine tell me I can use the power? Why couldn't she leave me alone? It is this fear, however, that stills her shaking hands. As she sheathes her knife, making a decision, and unties Bella's lead rein. The mare startles awake, but Nynaeve soothes her. Then she looks at the other horses on the line, who Bella had woken. Carefully, thinking of Mandarb's own temperament, she reaches for the next horse hesitantly. This horse not only gives her no problem, but also wants some of the same attention Bella was getting from her. Bella's reins tightly in one hand, and the other horses wrapped around her other wrist, she waits, desperately wishing for Moraine's distraction and praying the Aes Sedai isn't waiting for her return. Suddenly, lightning breaks across the sky directly overhead, and thunder crashes so loudly she thinks her knees will buckle. Then a fork of lightning stabs down into the ground just in front of where the horses are. The animals all lose their fucking minds in fear, screaming, rearing, snapping the picket lines as a second bolt comes down behind the first. And here, Nynaeve is suddenly being pulled apart. As Bella attempts to bolt one way and the other horse tries to flee the other direction, Nynaeve suddenly finds herself doing her best Spider-Man 2 impression, as her arms and shoulders are being pulled apart by the animals that are so strong her feet are lifted off the ground as she screams in pain. Lightning crashes down again, and again, and again, and the horses, being unable to flee the way they want, surge back towards her, lowering her to the ground. But she has no time to catch her breath or ease her aching arms and shoulders. The horses are mad with fear. She forces her arms to lift as she mounts Bella's bare back. Just then, a wolf snarls past her and the horses. Ignoring them, it snaps at the other crazed animals around her, stirring them up even more. A second wolf shoots past her, and Nynaeve tries to scream but can't. She heels into Bella, who is already set to flee, the other horse, still attached to her wrist, following without complaint. Anything to run and get away from the lightning and wolves. And the chapter ends.
That's right, Bella. That's right. There she is. There's my girl.
Got our girl.
Thank God. Thank God.
Right?
Yeah, pretty action-packed moment for Nynaeve there.
Yeah, absolutely. Picture Tobey Maguire stopping the train.
Yeah, very funny.
Spider-Man 2.
Very funny reference, actually.
I can't help it. That's exactly what I was seeing. But before we get into that, I want to go back to the very beginning of the chapter, because this really fucking bothers me. Just that little beginning section where she is standing there holding Aldib and Mandarb and her own horse, waiting for Lan and Moraine to come back. How did she get there? Why are they there? And what's going on? Because it never touches on any of that again. After that little moment, we then cut back to them leaving Whitebridge and then leading up to the scene I just finished. Where did that little scene come in?
I guess I don't know, now that I think about it. I thought that was weird, too.
I didn't really think about that too much.
It bothers me. I'm wondering if it was meant to, if maybe his original plan was for him to have her watch the horses while they went and scouted up ahead, and then him come back for her, hobble the horses, and bring her up. And he maybe either decided to leave it off and forgot about that first part, or just completely forgot about that first part and no one caught it. I don't know, but it bothers me that it's in there and there's nothing else around it.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I've tried flipping through. I tried looking through the last Nynaeve chapters, and I couldn't find anything.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, you know what? It looks like so this opening scene is right before, it starts the scene, and then she's remembering their journey, and then she's jerked back by Lan, who then leads her to where they're at, to where Moraine is.
it's doing the same thing that the chapter with the cart did. Like, it's
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
The wraparound.
Yeah, because it didn't make any sense to me, and I couldn't put it together.
Except instead of this one being the end and then going back and catching up to that, this is like somewhere in the middle and then goes back and catches up to that and goes from there.
Yep.
Yeah, he was playing with stuff there.
Yeah.
Robert Jordan was.
I'm not a fan, I don't think. I think you should just tell the story, sir.
Yeah. I don't think that
Challenge.
becomes too much of a habit. I don't know that he does it.
What?
I don't think he does it too much going forward.
In this book, at least, he's done it a lot already.
It's kind of an eye of the worldism, I think. I mean, unless we find more in the future that I've just gotten used to over.
Right, I'm trying to
rereads.
think of that if I just got so used to it in this one that I didn't notice it in anything else. I don't know. But yeah, so we found Bella, which means Nynaeve has confirmation that Egwene's probably in the camp as well.
At least a suspicion.
Moraine nearly gets Nynaeve both trampled and torn in half.
I don't know. I think some of Nynaeve's decisions were at play in how that turned out.
Well,
yeah, because she didn't.
Just saying, if she hadn't decided to do the horses, right? Maybe even if she had just decided to stay and cut the last picket line, given the timing, there was still a really good chance that lightning strike would have happened and she could have been trampled.
That's true enough. She was told to just cut the lines and leave. And then she chose to stay and get Bella and the second horse.
Right.
But, yeah.
So that was on her. But if she had been expected to cut all the lines, then Moraine only waited long enough for her to cut some of the lines and not all of them. Which means there was still a good chance that she would be down there.
Yeah.
Possibly. I feel like she was waiting for a second, but the timing is dicey either way.
Yeah. And also, mostly, I was just joking about it.
Yeah, well, because she does say, she's like, please don't wait for me to come back and do whatever you're going to do. And then she does it.
Right.
So,
right.
Like, I'm on it.
But how smart of her to think to grab not only Bella, but another extra horse so they didn't have to ride double.
Yeah.
Yep.
That was a very good call.
That was such a good call. Is there really that much more?
There's not too much to dissect in this one. It's kind of, aside from the weird, like, flashback thing, there's not too much to dissect. You know?
We know that, we learned that Aldib is an affectionate horse.
Yes. Or that she just like pets, which, understandable.
Yeah.
Mandarb is like, don't touch me.
Yeah, Mandarb is a war horse.
Yes.
And that's why Nynaeve was skittish about the other horse, because she expected, well, if it belongs to a white cloak, it would be trained the same way.
Yep. There is one thing I do want to touch on is Nynaeve noticing that, like, because of everything that has gone on, normal seems unusual to her now.
Yeah.
As they pass through the villages.
Yeah, when you've had your world turned upside down, that can happen.
Yep.
Which is an interesting juxtaposition to how Rand described it when they were traveling, because to Rand, it was just like, all of these villages look the same. There are slight differences with how they dress and how they talk, but they're just all the fucking same.
But that's kind of the same thing as Nynaeve. She was just observing it in a different way. They're normal.
Yeah. Well, and in a different context as well. Because I don't think they're interacting with any of these villages.
No.
No, they're probably just riding on through.
She doesn't have the opportunity to talk to any of them because she doesn't need to. She does not have to find a way to get food and shelter and transport.
Yeah.
Like the boys did.
Right.
They're just going.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, They sort of did with White Bridge because they didn't have a beacon for them. Moraine had to like feel out the vibes in the town, and
Right.
then was like, yeah, we can't follow this anymore, let's go look for the other boy. And now they are following a coin, and so there's not really any need to stop and ask around anywhere. Which also, it was nice confirmation that Perrin did get the coin back, because we were kind of wondering about that after the
Right.
White Cloaks took his stuff.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep. I remember thinking about that too.
Like, if that would cut the connection.
Not only does he get it back, but it didn't break the connection.
Yeah. Maureen was aware he had lost it, but then she was also aware when he regained it. So.
Right.
Mm-hmm. I wonder if, I mean, I assume then that if somehow Rand and Matt had gotten their hands on theirs, she would be able to find them again too.
Probably.
Whether it's like locked onto their aura or something, their energy signature.
It would be interesting to also find out, obviously we'll never know, if they had gotten each other's back, if that would still work.
Oh.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, was it like a group enchantment, or were there 3 separate enchantments?
Right. Or maybe even 2. Perhaps she enchanted Perrin separately from Matt and Rand, because Matt and Rand received theirs together.
That's true.
She could have enchanted them as she was handing them over. So who knows? Again, we'll never know, but it's interesting to think about.
Yeah.
We get to see just the White Guards just give off absolute grunt meathead vibes. Like,
yeah, they're NPCs.
Yeah, they don't even look around.
Yeah.
They say the exact same thing. They take the exact same number of steps.
It's kind of giving, to, go back to a Zelda reference again, when you're infiltrating the castle in Ocarina of Time, those guards that just walk back and forth and you have to dodge them. That's kind of the vibe I was getting from them.
Mm-hmm. Oh no, how am I ever going to get past them? And it turns out they just don't even notice you.
Or you sneak up behind 2 guards and you like stealth take out one, and the guy directly next to him doesn't notice.
Yeah. Must have gone home early.
Yeah. I wonder, I have to wonder if White Cloaks, unless you are probably like higher up, don't have assigned horses. And that is why those horses did not mind a stranger. Like, they're so used to like new people, riding them.
Yeah, probably. I mean, especially since before the wolf attacks, they had remounts. So they were like swapping out between horses as they traveled.
Yep. So it's and I mean, obviously I have absolutely no experience with horses of any kind in any way, shape, or form. So I'm not really entirely sure about horse behavior as far as that goes. If there are horses that, I mean, I know that, ranches have horses that guests can come and ride, so I know there are horses like that out there. Mm-hmm. But I would feel like horses in this kind of profession would be trained differently. And that makes me wonder how many of those horses they stole from farms.
Oh, yeah, like, bullied them. And,
yeah.
Like, give us your horses for the light.
Or we'll burn your house down. But yeah, that's all I really had to say on this chapter, which is those small observances. There's nothing big and revelatory going on here, except Nynaeve's absolute feat of strength in holding back those horses.
Yeah. Girl, wow.
Like, what was that? How did she not break shoulder bones?
Yeah. I know. It's funny that, he, when Lana's dragging Nynaeve, she's like, wow, he has really strong hands. Yeah. Stop, I'm blushing. Mm-hmm. Oh, wow.
He's so manly.
So strong. So strong. And she thinks he's just going to go in there and get them. Like, he is just one guy.
But he does not, she doesn't he doesn't say he can't do it.
Right. Because he could. It would just not be worth it.
His concern was the chase afterwards.
Right. Right. It just wouldn't be worth it. Yeah. No, stealth is the way.
Yeah. And, I do appreciate his faith in Nynaeve's skills.
Mm-hmm.
That turnaround there.
Yeah. I mean, it's like he's a strategist,
Right.
And he is sort of taking inventory of their resources, and Nynaeve's knowledge, which has been demonstrated multiple times to him by this point, is one of those things. And he can also tell that she doesn't like to be spoken down to.
Mm-hmm.
So he's like, if you're half as good as I think you are, then you can go get them and nobody will find you. And she's like, fuck you, dude. I'm going to do it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You two have anything else on it?
Yeah, not really. There's not much to dissect.
It's more of an action type of chapter.
Yeah.
Mm. I'm still very interested in sort of her struggle with knowing that she can use the one power, and when she's like certain that they would die as if she were listening to the wind, and it's where that power comes from and what it is. Is it precognition? Is like seeing the pattern in a different way than Min can, I guess.
Right.
But Min's power doesn't come from the same place. It's something else. So, and this doesn't seem to be, at least according to Moiraine, who we have no reason to believe would lie about it, especially since she clocked everything else. So I am paying attention to that as well as interesting, and the range of powers that it seems that you can get from interacting with the true source and using the one power, whether that affinity for, I guess, wind, air, that element is part of this, because I don't know how the wind tells her anything. I don't know if she hears it, or if it's, even if it's just like a certain sort of innate capacity for logic. Like if the wind feels particularly chiller than it's supposed to, you could probably guess that the crops are going to suffer.
Right.
Type thing, or that the winter's going to be longer than it's supposed to be if it's getting to when it usually changes and it hasn't yet.
Right.
So, but then to be cursed by this knowledge that she has this ability kind of restructures and has her reinterpreting her assessment of her own abilities is interesting to me, and that she doesn't want to know either. So I am paying attention to that. So every time it comes up, I am interested. But other than that, no. Are we ever gonna get a Nynaeve POV that doesn't last for 10 minutes?
Yeah,
that lasts longer than that.
She gets very short perspectives in this book.
She does.
She gets dust.
At least so far.
Well, if she gets longer chapters, then great. But again, just as I'm getting into it, it's over. I'm like, well, sick, I guess. Moving on to somebody else.
Which is what we do in this episode. We have 3 different perspectives in this episode.
Yeah, we do.
That's true. We are jumping around quite a bit.
I was thinking about that the other day.
And it's all 3 that we've had so far.
Yeah, it's 1 from each group.
Yep.
And yeah, all 3 that we've had. With that being said, should we move on?
I'm down.
Right.
Chapter 38 is called Rescue, and the chapter icon is one we haven't seen since chapter 12. It is the Flame of Tar-Valon, which Will told us in episode 4 meant that the chapter has something to do, generally, with Aes Sedai. Given where the last chapter left off, though, perhaps that's not entirely surprising. Chronologically, this chapter goes parallel with the previous one rather than immediately afterward. We're finally back with Perrin and Egwene, who we haven't seen, by the way, since chapter 30, 2 episodes ago. I'm laying this all out here because I had to look back at the book and all of our episodes to figure it out myself. So everybody's on the same page now. Anyway, while we've been with Rand and Matt and sometimes Nynaeve, Perrin and Egwene have been marched on foot without blankets or shelter because the White Cloaks fucking suck. They've also been walking behind horses with halters around their necks because the White Cloaks fucking suck. They're being pushed toward Caemlyn and eventually Amador, but it's slow going without the horses the White Cloaks lost to the wolves and the remounts. Their progress is steady, if treacherous. The ground is uneven, and Perrin knows that every time he stumbles, they might just drag him to death. Focused as they are on the ground in front of them, Perrin and Egwene only have enough time to send glances at each other every so often. When they stop this evening, Perrin can't sleep, his skin crawling with dread and his mind full of Bayar's brimstone promises. He thinks Egwene still doesn't believe Bayar, but Perrin does, because he describes the tortures awaiting them as though he doesn't care whether they're scared or not, tortured or not, left alive or not. Being beneath even contempt to him, Perrin realizes Bayar has no reason to lie to them. Bayar, and Bornhold as well, are exceptions in their dispassion, relatively speaking. The other guards assigned to them make no effort to hide their disgust, nor do the other White Cloaks. Perrin knows that in the end, just to get them to quit looking at him like he's a filthy animal, he'd probably confess to whatever they wanted him to, which, as we know, is their whole shtick because White Cloaks fucking suck. Bayar approaches where Perrin and Egwene are situated on the ground and tells the already awake Perrin to wake up, kicking him in the ribs. Perrin's whole torso is like a beautiful watercolor impressionist, I'm sure. But he tells Bayar that he's awake before he kicks him again and adds more paint to the canvas. Checking Perrin's restraints, because by the way, when they're not walking, they're hog-tied, Bayar grabs Perrin and drags him toward Egwene by his ankle rope. I hate him so much. Wow. Perrin shouts to wake Egwene up, so Bayar doesn't kick her awake too. He asks the two of them why dark friends should get to sleep when decent men have to stay awake to guard them. Egwene, who never backs down, never surrenders the point, says once again that they're not dark friends. This time, however, instead of lectures or kicking, Bayar just gets down in front of them, takes his helmet off, and stares at Perrin. You are slowing us down, dark friend, you and your wolves, he tells them. The Lord Captain is caught in the cleft of a dilemma. Because of the wolves, he must take you to the council, but he must reach Caemlyn too. We have no spare horses to carry you, but if we continue to let you walk, we will not reach Caemlyn by the appointed time. Okay, dude, who gives a fuck? What are you getting at? Perrin tells him he doesn't understand, and Bayar tells him there's nothing to understand, just speculation. If, for example, Perrin and Egwene escaped somehow, they wouldn't have time to track them down, pressed as they are for time. Hypothetically, of course, if they cut their ropes on a sharp rock and vanished, Bornhold's problem would be solved, and they would be able to get to Caemlyn in time without having to worry about bringing the prisoners along with them to Amador. Hypothetically. Turns out, this isn't just a thought exercise. Bayar then reaches under his cloak and throws an object to the ground, which Perrin sees as a rock with a split sharp edge. This must be a trap, right? Think, Perrin. If Bayar wanted them to escape, why not cut their bonds himself? Why give them, dark friends to him, someone who'd murdered two of his comrades, the opportunity to free themselves? Their guards are waiting. If they did cut their bonds and tried to escape, then Perrin's axe and White Cloak spears are waiting for them. If they were killed to prevent their escape, then that would also solve the Lord Captain's dilemma, and Bayar wouldn't need to invent a reason to kill them or to justify it to the Lord Captain. It would have been the Dark Friend's own fault, after all. Frantically trying to think of a way out of the trap laid for them this way, Perrin pleads with Bayar to wait before a message from Dapple erupts in his mind. Help comes. She's alive, and Elias too, as Perrin can see an image of him tending to a wound in his side. He's coming to help them, perhaps, if he's recuperated. Bayar insists to know what Perrin is thinking, but Perrin can also see him reconsidering his offer. If they don't fall into his trap, however, he can't risk leaving them alive to talk. At the end of every path forward lies death. As he waits for Bayar to pronounce their execution, several things happen quickly, starting with the guards. One is swallowed up by the night, and the second is taken out before he can even shout his alarm. Bayar spins and swings the axe against the moving darkness, which then becomes Lan. He's here, they're here. Oh my god. Lan dodges the axe by simply sidestepping it, earning at least 1 million aura, and incapacitates Bayar with a flurry of blows. Before he hits the ground, Lan has darkened the lantern and moves to free them. Perrin wants to know if Lan killed Bayar, which he denies, saying that he doesn't kill unless he means to because he's a fucking professional. Also, Perrin, shut up and get moving, honey. You're getting rescued. Get with the program. Following Lan's instructions, Perrin takes two of the white cloaks, finds his axe, and stands to find Lan and Egwene, but it's dark. And also, Lan can just disappear into the night whenever he wants. He does speak to let Perrin know where they are, though, and he makes his way toward them. He and Egwene put on the white cloaks. The cloaks, not the dudes. And then join hands with Lan, waiting. Then, the lightning that almost got Nynaeve quartered splits the sky apart and strikes the ground just beyond the tents. It's time to move. The lightning comes again and again, thunder roaring and sending the horses into a panic, as we've seen. White cloaks, the dudes this time, are trying to make sense of what happened, and as Perrin and Egwene go, their makeshift camouflage keeps them free of suspicion amongst all the commotion. Off into the night they go, away from the camp. When Perrin looks over his shoulder, he can see fires burning amongst the tents, and he can hear men shouting to establish order and figure out what even just happened. Abruptly, they stop running, and Perrin can see 3 horses. Moraine's voice comes from near them saying that Nynaeve hasn't returned yet. When Lan goes to get her, though, Moraine stops him in his tracks, reminding him that some things are more important than others. When he doesn't turn back, Moraine brings out his government name and title. Alan Mandragoran, Lord of the Seven Towers and diademed battle lord of the Malkiri. Their standoff continues until noise comes from the woods nearby. Lan prepares to defend Moraine, but it's Nynaeve, with the horse she took and our immortal and radiant Queen Bella. Nynaeve is exultant and relieved to have found Egwene, but Lan grabs her before she can get to them. Moraine tells him that it's time to go, though, and he releases her. Perrin asks where Mat and Rand are, and all Moraine says is elsewhere, which causes Nynaeve to mutter something so coarse and so sharply that Egwene gasps. Moraine is unbothered because of course she is, moisturized, focused, in her lane flourishing. And Lan tells Perrin and Egwene to lose the white cloaks. The cloaks, of course. They've already lost the dudes. They do so, and Perrin gets on the second horse that Nynaeve brought, riding bareback because he's got experience riding bareback. As they head out, Perrin feels Dapple touch his mind once more, but all she says is one day again. It carries the weight of foreordainment, of anticipation, of resignation. And Perrin tries to get more details, but he gets the same answer. One day again. The message stays with him even after the wolves disappear from his mind, and they move south. As they go, Lan drops back every so often to make sure they're not being followed, and they're not. And Egwene has some much-needed girl talk with Nynaeve. Nynaeve does look back to check on Perrin sometimes, and when she does, he waves like everything is fine, even though everything is decidedly not fine, because what did Dapple mean? Near dawn, perhaps, they finally stop, and Perrin and Egwene bury their now useless disguises in a hole in the ground. Egwene asks once again where Mat and Rand are, and Moraine says that she believes they're in Caemlyn, or on their way there. We don't know when these chapters occur, exactly in comparison to Rand's perspective, but the two of them are probably already in the city by now, at the inn. Moraine promises that if they're not, though, that she'll find them. They eat bread and cheese with hot tea, and Nynaeve produces medicines from her bag for Egwene's welts and bruises. Once she's seen to, Nynaeve comes over to Perrin and tells him to take his top off, so that she can see the pretty painting that Bayar made. Nynaeve gasps at its beauty, and Perrin realizes that only his thick, heaving, bulging muscles kept his ribs from being broken. Oh, it does also hurt like a motherfucker too, obviously. Nynaeve begins applying a different medicine, and it works like magic. The colors fade, some disappear, and the pain recedes as well. Nynaeve notes that he looks surprised, and says that next time he can go to her. Perrin sees that she looks surprised also, and afraid, for some reason, but he assures her that he's just glad. He asks her what happened to Rand and Mat, and while stuffing her things back into her bag like she's mad at them, Nynaeve says, quote, "She says they're all right. She says we'll find them. In Caemlyn, she says. She says it's too important for us not to, whatever that means. She says a great many things." Perrin smiles because Nynaeve is hilarious, but suddenly she grabs his head and moves his eyelids back to look at his eyes. Even though Perrin is huge and buff and strong, Nynaeve holds his head right where she wants it, muttering to herself. Finally, she lets him go and wonders at his eyes, saying that it can't be yellow eye fever because he wouldn't be able to stand. Furthermore, it's not the whites of his eyes that are yellow, just the irises. Furry powers. Moiraine comes over then and also grabs Perrin by the chin to look at his eyes, but Perrin can break away from her, and he does, insisting that it's nothing. Moiraine is way too knowledgeable for that, though, and she muses while looking beyond him, saying that the powers must be the will of the wheel. Nynaeve asks if Moiraine knows what's going on and whether she can heal him, and Perrin demands that they talk to him instead of about him and around him, but they ignore him because be quiet, adults are talking. Moiraine starts to reassure Nynaeve, but stops herself and says that at the least, she can say that his furry powers won't harm him directly. Nynaeve begins to argue, but Moiraine brushes her off, as she does. Did we miss this? I'm not sure if I missed this dynamic. I would be stomping my feet, like Nynaeve. But Moiraine just says that they have to leave at first light and reach Caemlyn quickly. Perrin realizes that she does know about his furry powers and that she thinks it might be the Dark One's doing. Lan sits down, finally letting himself be fully seen, and they stare at each other before Perrin asks if he also knows what Perrin can do. Lan just says he knows some, not all, and asks if the powers found him or if Perrin met a guide. Perrin tells him about Elias and finds out that Lan knows him. Elias taught Lan a lot, it turns out, because he used to be a fucking warder before the Red Aja tried to gentle him, though Lan doesn't say this part, just mentions the Red Aja. Perrin says he's heard of them, and Lan replies that most of what he's heard is probably wrong. In Tar Valon, like anywhere, there are different factions, he says, with different ideas about how to fight the Dark One. The goal is the same, the differences matter, because they can mean the lives of people and nations changed or ended. Perrin asks Lan whether he thinks the furry powers are indeed from the Dark One, but Lan tells him that they're just old. A power lost before the Dark One came to be as they know him. The chances, however, are astronomical. What are the odds that Perrin would have this power and then would find someone who could guide him as to what that power is? Lan says that the pattern of ages is forming a great web, what some call the lace of ages, and that Perrin, Mat, and Rand are central to it, just like Loial said. He wonders whether they've been chosen by the light or the shadow, and Perrin insists that the Dark One can't touch them unless they name him. Superstition, perhaps, or maybe it's true. Maybe Perrin's conviction makes it true. Lan warns Perrin to remember the times they're living in. Things dissolving, breaking apart, barriers weakening, walls crumbling, including the walls of the Dark One's prison. They may be living through the end of an age, or the end of all ages, or the end of the world. But all they can do, all they will do, is fight the Dark One and go down fighting if they must. He tells Perrin not to worry about whether the Dark One gave him the furry powers, and that as long as Moiraine is with them, they are protected. The same cannot be said, though, for Rand and Mat, who don't have an Aes Sedai to protect them. The closest one, in fact, would probably lock them up. Lan says that the Dark One may have the ability to affect the pattern like a butterfly effect, and if he can, then the others are in deep danger. Perrin says, "Will we have to find them?" And Lan laughs because is that not literally what he just said? He tells Perrin that they have a hard few days to Caemlyn and to pray that Moiraine can find them before the Dark One does. The fate of everything, really, hangs in the balance. And on that note, the chapter ends.
So I don't know if you mentioned it or not, but the White Cloaks fucking suck.
Oh.
Hey.
No, I don't think I did.
Quick question. Do the White Cloaks fucking suck?
I think that they do. I think they do. I don't know if I was clear. I don't know if I was clear enough about that. It was pretty subtle, I think. I probably didn't mention it as much as I should have.
No. When you talked about Perrin getting the cloaks of the White Cloaks, you sort of stumbled on it a little bit. And it's when you stumbled on that, I thought in my head, the cloaks, not the men. And then you made the fucking joke.
It's because we have the same brain, obviously. Yeah. Yeah, the cloaks, not the dudes.
And then lose the White Cloaks. The cloaks, they already lost the men.
Yeah.
Again,
so obviously.
I was already thinking that as you were saying.
Get out of my head then. What are you doing? You stalking me?
No, I live here. The rent is cheap. It's cramped rent because you've got all the brains in there because you're so smart, but the rent is cheap.
For you, it's free, I guess.
Oh, thank you.
Rent free in my head. That's fine.
Yay!
The main thing that I took away from this chapter is Perrin has experience riding bareback, you say.
He sure does.
Will, did you look at me the same way I looked at you? Or were you looking at Flint? Because I looked up and I was making the same fucking face.
I don't know. I just looked up and waggled my eyebrows.
I was really tempted to unmute in that moment and just go, "Hey, chicka bump bump." And then remute it.
I mean, it's in the text. I don't know. What do you want me to say? It's right there.
And also that Perrin was protected from broken bones by his tig old biddies.
Sure was. Oh man, it's a good thing I have these enormous jugs. Otherwise, I could have been really hurt. Wow.
Oh man.
Lucky me. Are we done?
Yeah.
Yep, that's the whole chapter right there. That's
All right,
all
cool.
we need to talk
We're
about.
out of here. We're out of here.
So Elias being a warder puts so much more into perspective for him. The way he walks so silently is not only attributed to his wolf-like nature now, but prior training, his knowledge of basically the outside world, because he's so hermit-like, if you will, and he avoids people, but he's so informed. That has to all come from his warder training and his background.
I mean, and his proximity to the Aes Sedai for them to have even had a problem with him.
Right.
Because
how long had he been a warder before the Wolf Brother thing started?
Yeah.
This guy's so scary. Like that. What?
Yeah.
Yep.
He was already a warder and then also has wolf powers. That's nuts.
Fucking imagine. Talk about OP.
Yeah. Where's his book?
Like, honestly, I would love it. I love Elias as a character.
The only thing that would make I do too. He's one of my favorites. The only thing that'd make him more powerful is if he still had his warder cloak. Because then he would be entirely invisible.
Yeah. Oh my god, Elias with a warder cloak. That's kind of scary to think about.
Yep.
Disappear whenever you wanted to.
Yep.
Yeesh.
We learned that Lan has quite an impressive title.
Yeah.
We've gotten little hints here and there, but this is probably the most we've gotten out of Moraine about it.
Lan getting full named and full titled implies just how much trouble he was about to be in.
Yeah.
Because he was 100% going to ignore her.
Yeah. Lock the fuck in, dude. Remember who you are, type beat.
Right.
You know,
like he took oaths.
Yep.
Dude.
Bruh.
And it just says Perrin blinks. Lan is all of that. And a bag of chips, I guess.
Quite literally. Well, and a bag of chips is what I guess that Nynaeve would be thinking that, but she's not there at that time.
Yeah. Not just yet.
Speaking of Nynaeve, looks like she might have done a little bit of magic there on Perrin.
Possibly. It seems like she's also surprised by how well the medicine works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because, what kind of poultice is gonna just wipe away a bruise, like intense bruising like that?
Yep.
I think she gets huffy about that's his surprise because she suspects the one power working through her, and she's already moping about that from my chapter.
Yeah, she's like, "What? You don't think my herbs are good enough, huh? Well,
You're surprised that they worked as well as they did? Right. Talk to her then next time.
Right.
Whatever. See if I care.
I think Bayar's attempt was so fucking transparent that, like, it was a napkin that soaked up grease off of a fast food pizza. Because Perrin's right. Like, any of the three boys would have acknowledged that. Even Matt, prior to the paranoia, would have been able to see through that, I feel like.
See, I don't know. I think in that situation, maybe Rand and definitely Matt would have been impulsive enough and desperate enough to take him up on it. I think Perrin being the one who like sits and thinks things through really it came to his advantage in that moment.
Because he already knows that it doesn't make any sense. He already knows the offer doesn't make any sense because he knows that Bayer like hates them.
Yeah.
Or like
Right.
wants them, would never set them free if he thought they were dark friends. And also because Perrin killed two of them. So there's got to be something else.
And like you also you do have to take into account the mental state that anyone would be in with the days of torture that he and Egwene have endured.
Right,
which is
for days.
why I still think Matt would have been wise enough at that point. I think the beatings would have wizened him up.
I don't know.
Because he would have gone into self-preservation mode at that point.
I think the self-preservation for him would be run. Take the first opportunity to run.
I am more inclined to say that Matt would probably be the one to fall for it. But I do think there is that possibility that he wouldn't. I think it could go either way with Matt, but I think with Rand, he would initially be like, yeah, okay, and then stop and be like, wait a minute. Afterwards, like after he had received the rock, but not before they tried the escape. And Flint, correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't think you mentioned it in your summary, but in the chapter itself, doesn't Perrin like think through how like he could easily kill them and then place the rock afterwards?
Yeah.
Not that he could place the rock afterwards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
either way,
it's
the
like,
rock is the trap, but it's
or
like
not placing the rock, but like fraying the ropes.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah.
He was like basically making it look like they were making the attempt.
Right. But it would be easier if they did it themselves, thinking that he was going to let them go.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
When the intent was that he was never planning to.
I would have loved a quick mid-chapter cut to Egwene's perspective and what was racing through her mind at the time.
I would love to know what Egwene was going through.
A chapter interruption, like just 2 or 3 paragraphs of what she's thinking, and then cut back to Perrin for the rest of that part of the story. Yeah, that man absolutely, though, had murderous intent, no matter which way you spin it.
Yeah, Bayer is a fucking snake. Like, he's
devious.
Fucking psycho. In the least fun way possible.
Yeah.
He's so cold about it.
That is why he's a psycho. He has, like, no feelings. There's no... he has a full inability to feel any empathy whatsoever.
Yeah, like there was a point where...
And that's a sign of psychopathy. I'm just saying.
There was a point where Perrin was, like, rationalizing things, and he's like, yeah, these other white cloaks hated him, but Bayar, like, just simply believed that he should die. It was so dispassionate, and that made it different.
It's not even worth hating him.
Yeah.
Right.
It was just a fact.
Yep. But I find it interesting that there's, like, in this entire world, this odd juxtaposition of, like, how women are viewed by the men. Because in one way they are equals, but in another way they still aren't. And I feel like with the Children of the Light, they would have been more inclined to treat Egwene better. But... And maybe actually... let her off when they reach where they're going, right? Because she is a woman, she maybe can be purified better or whatever it is they do, But I don't think that they would. I think they're far less likely to give any sort of grace to a man, whether he had killed other white cloaks or not. But it doesn't seem to be the case, and it's just really interesting to me how women are. I don't know what I'm trying to say. I can think it in my head. I have the abstract idea, but I can't put it into words.
I think they call them both dark friends, but if they were going to let Egwene go, like Bornhold says, that it's not whether it's partly that she's a woman or not, it's mostly that she's young. That seems like her way, a reason that she could be redeemed, like she's young and not deep into the ways of dark friends in his eyes. So they might give her the chance to explain herself. I'm not entirely sure. But Perrin, he says at one point like that he would confess to whatever they wanted him to if they would quit looking at him like he was a bug under their shoe. But they were never going to let him go anyway.
Right.
So that doesn't matter as much.
Right.
But Egwene, I think if she confessed the way that they wanted her to, I don't know what they would do and whether they would torture her anyway. I don't know. It doesn't seem like it's any different for men or women dark friends.
Yeah. I mean,
as far as how they view them, I don't know.
As soon as that confession comes out, it's an immediate death sentence.
Right. If there's a confession, like, there's such fucking hypocrites then, because if there's a confession, then what do you mean by redeeming?
Yeah.
Is your redemption your death?
Like, there's
redemption through death, I guess.
Because if that's the case, you would have to truly be willing to die for that redemption to hold, would you not? If you kill me and I am not ready to accept that punishment and be redeemed through death, then I'm not being redeemed.
I don't think you care about that.
Me. Right.
Depending.
I'm going down a thought rabbit hole, and I don't like it. My brain can't brain.
Yeah, it's tough, and I'm just not inclined to think good things about any of them, any of the White Cloaks. But it doesn't seem, just from the way that they act and the way that Bayard tells them what's going to happen to them, and he tells both of them, but Perrin thinks that Egwene doesn't believe him. It wouldn't. They've already been convicted, so anything else is just icing on the cake.
I truly believe that Bornhall did not lie to Egwene, though. Because he doesn't have a reason to lie and give her that false hope. So, and maybe it's a lie through his own belief. Maybe he truly believes that, even if it is a lie itself. You know what I'm saying? Even if once they get there is no hope for her, he thinks there is, and therefore, but I don't think he himself purposely lied to her.
Well, I mean, if he has a say in what happens to her, because he's one of the anointed, right? I don't know.
So, but other than that, fuck them all.
Yeah, no, they suck. I hate them.
On a different subject, I am incredibly angry that the title of this chapter is not One Day Again. I love that line so much. From Dapple. I don't know. I really like it.
It's prettier than Escape.
The Rescue.
Is it? Yeah, Rescue. Like, I wonder what happens in this chapter called Rescue. I don't know.
Right.
Because some of the chapters are a little more, chapter titles are a little more thematic, I think, than just straight up describing what the plot of the chapter is.
Exactly.
So I don't know how One Day Again really fits into that, unless it's because it's not, this chapter isn't so much about Perrin's preoccupation with the wolf powers,
no,
except after they're already gone. Like, it's,
but they've also, I get that, but they've also titled chapters in the past that were like just a line in the thing, or a reference to like something that wasn't crazy important at that time. I'm just saying that it like, what the fuck is the name of my chapter? The Long Chase. What is that?
Yeah, especially because the chapter wasn't that long. So
right. I mean, I get it because they're chasing the boys. I get it, but like, they could have titled it Lightning Strikes.
Light that burns the sky.
Yeah, like
is what I thought of, actually.
Yeah, like they could have done something cool like that, but no, The Long Chase and The Rescue.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's just a personal taste.
It doesn't compare to Eyes Without Pity.
For sure, no. Metal ass title.
There's so many titles that are so poetic, and then so many others that are just like blah.
Yeah. I guess they can't all be bangers.
Well, they should be. I'm just saying. Sounds like Nynaeve got a little bit lost.
Maybe it just took time, after she was almost drawn and quartered.
Yeah.
To get her bearings about her, and then to transport two horses when it was just supposed to be her that came back.
Right, because she did have to get back around the camp.
Yeah.
Yep.
She had to go all the way to the other side of it.
Right.
Makes sense.
Look at Nynaeve being a badass adventurer, too.
Right?
Yep.
Miss, I'm taking the kids and going back to Two Rivers.
Right. TCB.
Not much about Moraine in these 2 chapters.
No.
These last 2.
Nope. She's just there, being as inscrutable as always.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the fact that we've gotten more land than Moraine is kind of interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. We get another show of Lan's badassery. Like, he puts the lamp out before a body hits the ground. The man is faster than gravity.
Yeah. No, he's...
Mad skills.
Yeah. Very impressive. And all this time, I realized that he's called a warder, but I don't know what the wards are. So I'm still kind of wondering, whether
the warders are to keep everyone safe from him. His powers are being held in check.
Right. The ward is on him.
Right.
And whether, as of right now, it seems like possibly whether it's simply that it's his cloak that lets him do that, or whether a ward that he can make, if warders make wards, is one that protects him from being seen until he wants to be. I don't know.
How many wards can a warder ward if a warder could ward wards?
Ouch. I hate that. I hate that so much.
I've always loved tongue twisters. But yeah, does he get that skill from the cloak or not? No, but he has changed his cloak out before, and we've still seen him with that skill. So I don't think that's it. I think the cloak is...
Yeah, it's just chameleon.
An added bonus.
Mm.
It's just... Now, what's interesting is if it's unique to him, or if that is a warder's cloak, like they all get them.
I don't know. Because he's also a battle lord. So,
apparently.
Who knows? Big dog.
It sounds like he's in charge of something. I do like his last name, though, Mandragoran. That's fun to say.
Lan Mandragoran.
Mandragoran? Is that how it is?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I can't read all the time, so... Yeah. It is something that I did at near the end when he's Lan says this may be the end of an age. We may see a new age born before we die, or perhaps it is the end of ages. It reminded me that's what people thought when the Cold War ended, that history was over now. There wasn't, like, that was the last big thing. It had been World War it had been World War II, and then the Cold War had taken 40 years, and then that it was over. So they were like, well, that's it. It genuinely was like we are now postmodern. That modern history is at an end now. Modern history is the history of the war of nations, wars among nations, and that's over now. Because and that's just how it is. There's no more big conflict like that, and that we'd moved past it. So now it was just onward into the glorious Y2K future. But it's the thing is,
then we had to go and invent Forever Wars.
Right. Well, yeah, and it's because the thing is,
with no
is that
actual objectives.
Right. And that's never how history works. As long as people move, history moves.
Yeah.
And the threads that are laid then continue to alter how things go afterwards. The part of how to get Russia, the Soviet Union at the time, to get out of Afghanistan was to train the Taliban. So, and what did they use? They used American weapons.
Yep.
Because it was anybody who opposed communism was good enough. And they're in Afghanistan, and wouldn't you know that the way that they left Afghanistan and then the way that everybody kept interfering within Afghani politics made somebody by the name of bin Laden really pissed off. And so and then we entered the age of the Forever War. And it's not like it's the first one. Vietnam, Forever War.
Yeah.
The Vietnam War lasted for 30 years.
Yep.
Flat out. Right? Is like the Cold War, 40 years. Is 45-ish. You can say, if it started in 1946 and ended in 1991. And so then to have the War on Terror, but the seeds for what happened with September 11th had been laid in the Cold War.
Mm-hmm.
So this idea that the Cold War was the last big thing and that we were postmodern history now and that there was nothing left was never true. These things were always happening, and it's not like we teach history in discrete chunks, like this period ends here, this period ends here. It's never like that. That's never how it really goes. And so you can talk about, then people talk about long decades or long centuries, like the long 1960s, from like 1958 to 1973 with Watergate or whatever, right? History doesn't work that way. It's easier to teach if we act like everything is separate from everything else, but that's never how it is. And it's always being informed by other things. But it is, I'm sure that if there are like apocalyptica cults here in Randland, I'm sure that they would be thrilled to learn about the end of days. But it was interesting to me because we only just learned about the fact that this is the third age. And what do you mean that it's ending? What is that? I just got here. It's book 1. What do you mean? What happens in the rest of them? Is that not the third age anymore? What are we doing? But whenever things about how history works comes up, I do tend to latch onto it. I spent a long time doing that.
That was a whole 5-minute lead up to you talking about the third age.
Yeah. To get to what my point was, I guess.
Thank you for coming to Flint's TED Talk.
Yeah. It's gonna happen. I can't turn it off. I spent 20 years doing this.
I am not complaining. You guys have to put up with my animal bullshit. So
that's fine. Yeah. But yeah, I thought that was interesting to end up, we get introduced to this whole structure of this time and these ages, and then maybe it's over, maybe it's ending, maybe we're getting beyond it. I guess we'll have to see.
But like in the grand scheme of time, at least how I've always taken like this kind of a line, it's not like he means it's ending now, this year. And to me, it feels more like the ending span, like the back portion of it, if you will. The last, like, if we're putting it into like numbers, the last 1/4 of this age or something. You're right. We're approaching the end, but we're not at the end. Like that's how I always think of it. So, and even so, in talking about the different ages, we don't even really have, the only real thing that we have as a set event that separates them is the breaking of the world.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I don't know what counts as the end of an age or like what precipitates that. I don't know. Right. I don't know what counts other than that the breaking was the end of one and the start of another one. Yeah. I don't know. That's not really been established. So whether it has to be that the world gets broken every, 3,000 years and then they do it again or something. Right. I don't know.
Back it up, start it all over.
Right. I mean, and if the
super old Ogier being like this again.
Right. God damn it. Not again. Fuck. Gotta find the setting again.
We built that city.
Gotta find the setting again. Oh well. Well, and you would think that I guess it wouldn't surprise me if time worked cyclically here because the metaphor for time is a wheel.
Right.
So like the wheel spins and spins and spins and spins without end. And
history repeats itself over and over and over again.
It's just it just goes. And, there are societies here in this age that use like circular conceptions of time and how things work. I think the Mayan calendar is a circular calendar.
Yeah.
And so it just like it marked however many years. And then that was the end of one and the start of another one. And it just kept going. And that was like all that apocalyptica or all that worry about 2012.
No, that's not how that works, guys.
Yeah. And here we are.
Us millennials out here being like, we were promised.
I don't know. I still think the world did end then because like we've been in hell ever since.
The bad place. This is the bad timeline.
I don't know. If we're talking conspiracy theories, I like the 2016 one personally. That we ended up in the AU with Harambe being killed.
Oh, and so there's one where he's not dead.
And things are much better.
And that's like the golden age?
Yeah.
And that's the golden age?
Yeah.
Sick.
Yeah, there's a whole conspiracy theory about it. I love it. That's a whole nother episode.
Yeah.
Right. Any other points from this chapter?
No, unless Flint wants to go on another 7-minute rant to round us up to 3 hours. Sorry, wait, 6-minute rant.
Are you making fun of me?
No, I just could use another history. I'm down for another history lesson.
I don't have any more.
Besides, it just means it would just mean that Will has more to edit out.
Yeah.
I don't have any more. No, I'm all done.
For
I'm
now.
interested to learn more about land now, though.
Yeah.
Because of all that stuff. But
yep.
That's about it.
Think about, though, real quick, how much, like, we're not even done with this book. How much we have learned, all the little, like, teasers and droplets. We now have an additional 13 books to learn so much more.
And a prequel.
What the fuck goes on in those?
And a prequel.
Right. and a prequel.
Yeah, I don't. Where do we go from here? I don't know.
Right.
But I'm interested to find out.
Well,
I think you are in for a very fun ride.
Yeah, that brings us to it. Where do you think we're going in the immediate future?
Well, I think they're going to Camelin.
That was the joke.
There's some good indications for that possibly happening.
Yeah. I'm actually like an empath.
Are you sure they're not going to like turn back around and go to Whitebridge?
Well, are you Elida? So. Like,
yeah, I'm like an empath, and I'm getting the vibe that they're going to Camelin after this, and everybody's going to meet up in Camelin. Call it a hunch. I hope that Rand has more conversations with Loyal. That's fun. Big fan of that. Although if Matt meets him, that's going to be something else.
I hope we get Loyal in some of y'all's chapters, and then I can hear your voices.
No, I can't do it.
You have to try. You have to try.
I would never step on your turf. I would never.
My Loyal is going to sound like probably the deeper voice of my 2 White Cloak guards.
I mean, and then once they're all in Camelin, I suppose it would be interesting if they if they ended up encountering Elida after all, anyway, or had a run-in with the Queen's Guardsmen and found out that they knew Tom. That would be just great. That would be more drama to not let them leave Camelin.
Yeah.
And then I guess I assume that they're going to Tar Valon after that. And then whatever that is, whatever happens there. Yeah. Then it looks like we're 5 episodes from the end of book 1.
Yeah.
So I have no idea where I don't know. I have no idea where it could possibly go from here. But as of right now, I'm interested. And actually, if they do go to Tar Valon, I would love to see more about it, because I'm very fascinated by what goes on within the walls. I mean, and at the White Tower.
Apparently, they do have a very nice grove there.
Yeah, that they've taken care of. Yeah. Oh, the thing about Elida, I think it says that she has like feelers or something. Is there like espionage going on? That would also be interesting. I would love a little side insert, like spy versus spy. That would be fun.
It would be fun.
Yeah. I am sad that Perrin left the wolves behind. There's no more of that. So I guess he doesn't have to worry about it, except for now that his eyes are yellow.
Oh, yeah. We didn't talk about that. Perrin's got fucking yellow eyes now.
He's got the Wolfman eyes. Yeah.
It just happened.
He and Elias are twinsies.
Twinning. And how Maureen is like, well, of course he's gonna be fine. Probably. Maybe. Alex, stop in my head. Actually. I need the brain cell right now.
Normally she's stepping on what I'm saying at the same time. Now it's your turn.
We're sinking. We've done this too much now that we're starting to sink.
I mean, 20 years of history together. 20 plus years.
Oh my god. 20 plus years. I'm kind of surprised me and Flint haven't started syncing up sooner. In all honesty.
Right. Well, I guess that means join us next time for chapters 39, 40, and 41.
Yep.
Yes, indeed.
Very long chapter 40 for me.
Oh, it's your turn.
If chapter 41 is the long one, that means it's also me again.
No, chapter 40 is long,
Oh,
and
is
it's
it?
fine.
Okay.
I haven't looked at chapter 41, but mine, at least on my e-reader, is like almost 50 pages long.
Oh boy.
Nice. Your turn.
Yeah.
You've gotten off easy.
Yeah. It looks like it might be part of a dream chapter.
That's fun to try to summarize.
Yeah. Great. We're gonna start early.
Right. Well, thanks for listening. We'll see you all next time.
See ya.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Easing the Badger. If you want to keep reading along with us, please make sure you subscribe to our show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or anywhere else you find podcasts. Make sure you leave us a 5-star rating and a review where possible. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Blue Sky at EasingBadgerPod, and send us an email at easingthebadgerpod@gmail.com. Our link tree will be in the show notes. Theme music is Magic Tavern by Alexander Nakarada.